President Verheyen and President López Aguilar, honorable members, this is a very special moment for me. It is an emotional moment. Over the last 30 years, on countless occasions, I have had the chance to sit in a number of committees and bodies of this institution, first as a junior official, then as a manager, and later as member of the European Parliament. But the magnitude of me sitting now in front of you as Vice President-designate, seeking for your confidence and trust to implement a program for the next 5 years together with you, is truly humbling. The treaty reminds us that the European Union is founded on the respect for human dignity in a society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. In doing so, the treaty for me very clearly defines my mission as Vice President. The portfolio responsibilities attributed to me range from education, culture, employment, security, migration, to health and equality. But the common thread of all these areas, of all these policy areas, is people. Defending the simple but essential premise that everybody matters, that none should be left behind, and that all should have access to the same rights, securities, and opportunities. This is the premise I will start from, should I be confirmed as Vice President. I see my coordinating role as bringing a significant added value in 3 main areas on which I will concentrate these short introductory remarks. First, on making our societies fairer and more inclusive. Second, on delivering the new Pact for Migration and Asylum. And thirdly, completing our security union that addresses traditional and modern threats. In all 3 areas, the measures to be taken have to cut across existing organizational silos. My job will be to ensure we pool expertise across policy areas with a focus on people and concrete outcomes. I do not, by any means, take lightly the debate that has been triggered by the title given to this work. I have the greatest respect for all the positions and all arguments expressed in this debate. Shakespeare would have us believe that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. But names are important because they give things meaning. They bring us meaning. And it means something to be European. At its core, being European means protecting the most vulnerable in our societies. It means healthcare and welfare systems that all can access. It means having the same opportunities. It means promoting culture and sport as core elements of our systems and equipping people with the knowledge, education, and skills they need to live and work in dignity. It means feeling safe on our homes, in our streets, and all of the places we like to meet, exchange, and experience life together. Being European means being open to the world, extending heart and home to those who are less fortunate. It means standing up for these values, for these rights, for these principles across the globe. Being European means peace, freedom, equality, democracy, and respect for human dignity. On a very personal note, being European for me has meant living a European life, raising a European family, and dedicating 30 years of my life to European public service. I am nothing if not for Europe. I am proud to be European, and all the more so for having been given the unique opportunity to serve our Union. Honorable members, your committees represented here today serve as drivers in making our societies more inclusive and more resilient. And I believe that together we can build a future based on access and opportunities for all. Let me start with the first chapter of these remarks, making our societies fairer and more inclusive. We are known as societies that protect the most vulnerable in our midst, and I want this to be true across the board. If confirmed, I will use the cross-cutting portfolio attributed to me to promote a comprehensive approach when it comes to inclusion and integration. The establishment of a European Pillar of Social Rights has been a landmark development, but we must now make sure that all these rights and principles are brought to life in practice. One of my first tasks, my main tasks, will be to ensure that the future European Social Fund Plus fosters social inclusion, supports those most in need, and helps enhance labor mobility across the EU. We need to equip our youth with the right skills to thrive in a changing world of work. We will work to make the European education area a reality and incentivize member states to reform and modernize their education and training systems, including in digital learning. I will ensure we use the Erasmus+, the Discover EU, and the European Solidarity Core programs to empower our youth and offer new mobility opportunities. To help ensure that no child is left behind, we shall introduce a European Child Guarantee to ensure children at risk of poverty or exclusion have access to most basic rights like healthcare and education. This is an idea born precisely in this Parliament, and we will honor this pledge. I will work with the Health Commissioner to ensure we promote the inclusiveness of national healthcare systems, and I work with the Equality Commissioner to ensure we promote equality at all levels, including between sexes, a new push for the anti-discrimination legislation, and a European gender strategy that promotes equal pay for equal work. This new drive for inclusion across all spheres must include a strong and renewed push to further the integration of third country nationals. I intend to build on the 2016 Action Plan on the Inclusion of Refugees and Migrants and additional funds in this area. I was glad to see that the longer-term integration of migrants and refugees will be incorporated under the new European Social Fund Plus. This will allow us to have more tools and more resources to support inclusion initiatives. And we must not forget one of Europe's treasures, our cultural heritage, that we must continue to invest in and promote inside and outside our borders. Sport, too, can have a positive impact on society in terms of health, social inclusion, and gender equality. If we want to help our societies and economies thrive, we need to support everyone who is part of that society, with inclusion being both a right and a duty for all. Let me now come to the second chapter of my work, delivering the new Pact on Migration and Asylum. This is a tall order, but one I believe we can achieve by mobilizing our strengths and learning from the past. This new pact must be cross-cutting and marry internal and external policies. When it comes to the reform to our common European asylum system, the first thing we will do, together with the Commissioner for Home Affairs, is engage in a dialogue with you and our member states. We have to find exactly where there is scope for compromise, listen and establish the way forward. We will present you quickly with options that we would like to discuss and find consensus on. But only then we will be putting something formally on the table. We will not neglect for a second the mountain of work already achieved over the past 3 years, as well as the compromises found already on a large bulk of the reform package, all of which I know very well was very much thanks to you here in this Parliament. This work will be preserved. Our internal reforms are only one part of what needs to be a much broader picture. As a stopgap until a new, truly asylum system comes into force, we need to support member states in concluding temporary arrangements on disembarkation. For me, part of this must include pursuing a proper dialogue with the many NGOs doing commendable search and rescue work in the Mediterranean. We need them to be part of the solution. And today, on the tragic anniversary of the Lampedusa tragedy, this is true than ever before. All proposals and initiatives of the new pact will be done with the aim, a parallel aim, of lifting internal border controls and returning to a fully functioning Schengen area. A credible system for asylum must also protect against abuses of the system. I will lead a renewed drive to set up returns of those with no right to stay, firstly by completing the reform of our EU internal rules on return, and secondly by concluding readmission agreements and arrangements with priority countries of transit and origin. It is now high time to use all tools at our disposal in support of our priorities in the area. And finally, building on pilot projects on legal migration, which are underway, I will promote modern and targeted legal migration schemes that respond to the needs of the EU economy, labor market, and demographic challenges. And we will ensure that humanitarian corridors are set up along the model of the emergency transit mechanisms to Niger and now also Rwanda. Finally, moving on to my responsibilities regarding our security union. The values that we stand for must not only be championed, but also secured against what challenges them. This is the same union that sets world standards on data protection and privacy. And I'm very conscious that my role is also to ensure that whatever we do in security respects fundamental rights. The respect of fundamental rights needs to be designed into policies from the start. This will also guide my work in implementing the interoperability proposals, which will be particularly important as we move to launch our new information systems. I will place a relentless emphasis on implementation of what we have collectively agreed. I will promote a coordinated approach to protecting Europeans online through the adoption of our terrorist online content proposal, by inputting the Digital Services Act to come, and by investing in the work of the EU Internet Forum. I will use any possibility I have to build the EU's resilience and response to hybrid threats, which threaten our systems and our very democracies. Mesdames et Messieurs les députés, je siégeais en tant que membre de cette Assemblée et je sais pertinemment que le cœur de la démocratie européenne réside ici. C'est ici que nos lois sont adoptées et notre avenir façonné. Ce Parlement, votre Parlement, a été élu avec le plus grand nombre de voix en 20 ans. Cela témoigne de l'engagement actif des citoyens qui participent et donnent forme à notre démocratie. Nous ne pouvons pas le décevoir. Cela signifie également que j'assume une totale responsabilité envers vous, ainsi que la plus grande transparence quant à mon travail et à ma personne. Κυρίες και κύριοι βουλευτές, κλείνω λέγοντας ότι δεσμεύομαι να εφαρμόσω τα υψηλότερα πρότυπα δεοντολογίας και διαφάνειας με σεβασμό στη συνθήκη και τον κώδικα συμπεριφοράς των επιτρόπων. Δεσμεύομαι να εργαστώ συλλογικά με τους συναδέλφους μου και να εργαστώ ακούραστα μαζί σας για μια ένωση ασφαλέστερη για τους πολίτες μας, πιο ισότιμη, χωρίς αποκλεισμούς. Πάνω απ' όλα, δεσμεύομαι με όλες τις δυνάμεις μου να θέσω ως απόλυτη προτεραιότητα τους ανθρώπους. Πέρα και πάνω από κομματικές γραμμές και εθνικά σύνορα, η δική μας ένωση πρέπει να είναι μια ένωση ανθρώπων. Μια ένωση στην οποία κανένας δεν θα βρίσκεται στο περιθώριο. Μια ένωση πολιτών που ζουν σε συνεκτικές και ανεκτικές κοινωνίες. Σας ευχαριστώ.
Thank you, Mr. Schinàs. Now we move directly to the first round of questions up to 7. It'll go to the representatives of the political groups of this House. We get started with Roberta Metsola for the EPP. The floor is yours. 1 minute.
Thank you, Vice President-designate, for your comprehensive introduction. The EPP welcomes the fact that your portfolio will cut across a number of interdependent aspects of European life, because, as you have rightly said, ultimately your portfolio deals with people. Our European way is rooted in the treaty: respect for human dignity and rights, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, rights of minorities, pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity. We are proud of these values and proud of the example they give, not only to Europeans, but across the globe. Your portfolio demands leadership, and this is what we will look to you to provide. How do you plan to ensure that the equality and the diversity that is so much part of our way of life is strengthened? How will you ensure that integration remains a cornerstone of your work? And finally, you have been asked to coordinate the new pact on migration and ensuring coherence with internal and external aspects and labour market realities. How do you plan on doing that?
Thank you, Mrs. Metsola. Vice President-designate, 2 minutes for your first answer.
On the values and the priority to use this cross-cutting responsibility to fertilize with our collective work things that each of these work streams can produce, to combine the emergence of everything that our new societies will need in terms of skills, equality, integration, inclusion. I think this is very obvious. I don't think that I need to spend too many words on this. We are very successful in working in these work streams. We have been doing it successfully, but now we need to harvest the work that is coming out of these parallel tracks to create new added value. I am delighted, and I must say excited, to have been given this responsibility, because this involves cooperation with my fellow commissioners, with you here, and of course our member states. Now on the pact, I think that one of the lessons of the situation that I, together with Ylva Johansson, find in this area is that we desperately need a new start. We need to look again those things that clearly haven't worked and we haven't managed to agree upon, without losing the 5 important pieces of work where significant progress has been made in the package. So we need to concentrate at the center of gravity, and the center of gravity of the pact clearly would be the reform of the Dublin rules and the corresponding regulation and procedures. But then clearly we need to add next to it everything that risks, that needs to unblock the situation, that would help us do this fresh start, and that would help clink minds of those who have a partial view of what needs to be done.
Now, follow up, 1 minute, Mrs. Metsola.
Thank you very much for that answer. Now, specifically when it comes to migration, while arrivals have reduced, there are still people losing their lives on our shores. Trafficking networks are still operating. Returns are still not where we need them to be. We still lack a proper system of responsibility sharing. Countries of origin still need increased European investment to build up their systems, and readmission agreements are still too few. So it is clear, as you just said, that more needs to be done. But what can you do differently over the next 5 years that has not been tried and already blocked? And how do you see your role in seeing this happening? And finally, on legal migration, understanding that this is member state territory, is it a time for a serious assessment to be made to better match the skills needed in member states with those of the people arriving legally in Europe?
Vice President-designate, your minute to close.
Starting from where I left it in your first question, I think that we have to start keeping our emphasis on the reform of Dublin and corresponding procedures, but to unblock the situation, bring in all the other elements that combine the full picture. Returns, new readmission agreements and arrangements, Schengen, borders. We have to help people see that there is not one issue that can be the magic bullet in all this. We have to address all dimensions of the package, both internal and external. Talk, listen, and then come. On legal migration, in the 10 seconds that I have, I think we have to build on the success of these pilot projects, review our blue card blue card proposal, which is on the table, and quite intelligently match our skills, needs and demography with clear legal pathways and avenues. I think this is possible.
Thank you again. Now the floor goes to S&D representative, Mrs. Sippel. 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schinàs. Unfortunately, the title of your portfolio plays into the hands of right-wing extremists, leading to interpretations that you are building a kind of fortress Europe. But our culture has always been influenced by migration, visible in everyday things like food, architecture, music. Migration is a challenge, but migrants are not a threat. And welcoming people who flee from persecution, war, or are looking for employment is part of our history and our European values. In your letter you state, we need to protect our European culture. Can you precisely say from what or whom we need to protect? And can you ensure that your portfolio will not contribute to greater division in society, but to a more inclusive union? And how, in concrete words, will you, as mentioned in your letter, promote our values and a rule of law culture?
Thank you. Now your 2 minutes for answer, Vice President-designate.
Thank you, Mrs. Zippel, for this question that allows me to clarify. I think I tried to do it in my introductory statements, but I have never shared the view that the title of my portfolio can be a threat or can be inducive to an us versus them culture. This is not what guides our work. The European Union is a beacon of light in a world that becomes darker. We are diverse, we are inclusive, we are different, we are special. We are admired and envied. And I think that is also in our interest to use positively these attributes, to make more resilient and more inclusive societies without having the fear or some call it self-flagellation, that we have to apologize because of our values. And if certain populists try to speculate or instrumentalize our values, I would say that our values are very resistant to be threatened by the populists. The populists should be threatened by our values. I do not think that there is a culture of animosity or enemy. Migration policies, the way we structure our migration policies, are comprehensive, are inclusive. They are based on the very single premise that Europe will continue to be an asylum destination. That defines us. This is who we are. Why is this us versus them? This is the most value-driven policy we have, that Europe will be always a land of asylum. But also we have to be very clear that those who are not eligible for asylum at some point would have to go back. And we will do that in our own European way, with our own values, in a humane and dignified way, with our money, decently. I do not see why this should be something that would make us feel guilty or proud or something to apologize on. Certainly, I want to stress the positive side of all this.
Thank you. Madam Sippel, a minute for your reaction.
I'm sorry to say that you did not answer the question against whom we need to protect our culture, and you did not answer the question how concretely you want to promote our values and rule of law culture. Once again, will you show a clear commitment that this Commission will work for a Europe that extends its hearts and homes to those already in the Union, but also to newcomers? And could you specify what exactly will be new in the new pact on migration? How will it differ from existing legislation and proposals for reform currently under discussion? And how will it differ from Parliament's decision on a holistic approach for migration? And hopefully you can also answer the other questions from my first minute. And on the title, I never said you share the negative interpretation of the title. Nevertheless, this interpretation is there. And in the written questions, we asked if you are ready to change the title. You did not answer that. Therefore, do you personally engage to have the name of your portfolio changed?
Your final minute, Commissioner-designate.
Let me first start by the against whom. Against those who do not allow us to celebrate 14 Juillet in Nice. Against those who do not allow us to walk in Ramblas in Barcelona. Against those who, instead of helping migrants, tackling them in a camp. Against those who do not give food to asylum seekers. Against those who do not allow their children to go to school. Against all these elements that we think we can be addressed positively through an inclusive approach to who we are and what we stand for. Again, I repeat, I think I made it very clear, that under no circumstances my view of this portfolio, which exists, it is true, for the first time, should be seen negatively, or should make us think that some populists would like to instrumentalize it, so we have to play the game of the populists. Certainly, this is not my role. As far as the pact, I think I was very precise in my replies to Mrs. Metsola. I'm happy to have more opportunities to continue explaining those.
Thank you. Now let's move to the Renew group representative, Mrs. Interveld. You've got 1 minute for your question.
Thank you, Chair. And, thank you, Commissioner-designate. I must say I have absolutely no doubts about your personal commitment to the values you've described, but I also admire your valiant attempts to defend a title that cannot be defended. You've not even spoken the words of the title, Protecting Our European Way of Life. Now, you're a very experienced communications expert, and I think you immediately understood that this title combined with the migration portfolio is toxic. It has been embraced as a victory by the far right, and you know better than anybody else that no amount of interpretation and explanation can undo that. So I'm amazed that Mrs. von der Leyen has so far insisted, because if this was ever meant to unite people, it failed miserably, because it is divisive and it excludes people. And that shows in Parliament as well. If I see, ECR is happy about it, EPP is only half-heartedly in damage control mode, and the centrist forces reject it outright. So do you agree the choice of title was a mistake, or even worse, a case of bad political judgment?
To you, Vice President-designate. 2 minutes.
Mrs. in 't Veld, I start by the premise that I respect, I said it in my opening statement, I respect all arguments and all positions expressed in the debate on the title. I'm very happy to repeat it. I do not argue the value of the arguments expressed. I think when I read the op-ed that the President-elect has written to leading European newspapers 3 weeks ago, where she clearly explained the positive way of seeing this in conjunction with Articles 2 and 3 of the treaty, this op-ed terminates by a concluding paragraph that says that part of our European way of life is that in Europe we always discuss and agree amongst ourselves. So I think, since you're challenging me to position myself against this fact, that I have full confidence in the President-elect to value this argument. She has been in Parliament for many years, as many as you have been, and I think that between the respect of all the arguments expressed and her willingness to listen and agree, I'm sure that time will provide the answer you are asking me to give now.
Is that it? Okay,
yes.
Over to you, Mrs. in 't Veld, for your complimentary remarks.
That's interesting. We have time. We still have 2 minutes, I believe, because the question. Because the question is really seriously, and again, this is not just a question addressed at you, but at the Commission and Mrs. von der Leyen, what battle does the Commission want to pick? Because there was a vote in July that was won with a wafer-thin majority. And then I wonder why the Commission doesn't invest in a close relationship with Parliament instead of a kind of showdown over the European version of Leitkultur, because that's basically what it is. And I think it would be better to try and seek an alliance with the pro-European centrist forces rather than appeasing the fringes. Now, my group, Renew Europe, has made it very clear the title needs to go. Full stop. So my advice to you, drop the dog whistle and work with us for the next 5 years for a European Union that is open and inclusive, because you will not find a majority in this House for anything else. And Europe should be the world champion of equality, diversity and opportunity. So the choice is yours, Mr. Schinàs. Will you, yes or no, advocate to drop the title? Thank you.
Over to you again. Over to you again. Mr. Schinàs. Excuse me, the timing has to be reset because the round of applause made it count. We should get started fresh. 1 minute. There you go, Mr. Schinàs.
Gracias, Presidente. When the President-elect presented her political guidelines in July to this Parliament, she presented 6 streams of work in writing and in her speech. One of the 6 was protecting the European way of life, with the content that was clearly explained. She obtained the confidence of this House. She is the President-elect because you invested her with your confidence on the basis of the 6 guidelines that she submitted to you and you approved. So I understand that lots has happened since. I understand that you try to marry a certain negativity, prejudging the work that I will be doing, whereas I'm taking time to explain to you that I would never see negativity being part of my job description. On the contrary, you're preaching to the converted when you discuss on the need for us to be the world champion of equality, gender parity, climate, because we already are, by the way. We already are world champions of all this. So we need to assume this with a certain pride, and we need to defend it. And if you are pitching this to me personally, and you're telling me to do it, I've been building bridges for the last 30 years. That's what defines me. I have been building bridges. That was my job, to bring people together. And I'm confident that I can continue doing this.
Thank you. Now, now we move to the Greens group. It'll be 1 minute for Mr. Bagid.
Thank you. Mr. Schinàs, I know you've tried to put a positive spin on your job title, but aren't you genuinely embarrassed that your job title, protecting our European way of life, seems to have been stolen from some sort of 1990s neo-fascist online chat room? For many people, it seems as if what we want is for you to, for the sake of Europe, to please just ask for a job title that isn't a gift to a lot of racists and fascists. With these premises, I am concerned about what your priorities will be concerning integration. Do you commit to evaluate and update the Commission's 2016 Action Plan on the integration of third country nationals living in the EU, and to support the Parliament in obtaining complementary budgetary commitments in the framework of the MFF negotiations? And in particular, would you commit to support the direct provision of funds for local and regional authorities, as well as civil society organisations, for integration and reception activities as proposed by this Parliament in its position on the AMIF fund?
Your turn, 2 minutes, Vice President-designate.
Mr. Majid, I think I already replied earlier to Mrs. Zippel in saying that it's the extremists and the populists that need to be afraid of our values, not the other way around. And I clearly reject that, at least as far as I am concerned, the way I view this title responds to what you just described in the first part of your question. On the second part of your question, the answer is a resounding yes. I said it in my opening statements. We have this action plan 2016 at the peak of the migratory crisis phenomenon, where we tried bringing together all different strands of the Commission to produce a first action plan on inclusion and integration of refugees and migrants. It worked, but I see this only as the beginning. We need to do much more, and we are lucky that under the new MFF proposals, the long-term inclusion of migrants would be under the new European Social Fund Plus Fund, which gives us much more money, much more opportunities. And I will say something else what I agree fully with you. You have been a mayor in Sheffield, I believe. I do not see that this work needs to be done from Brussels. It would be a huge mistake for a Brussels knows better than everybody else approach. We should not promote inclusion as a top-down instrument from us to you. We have to listen to local communities, to regions, to municipalities, to people on the ground, civil society. And I pledge that you will see me a lot on the ground. You will see me with the host communities, you will see me in training centers, in football matches, you will see me at schools, universities. That's where we need to go. And I very much count on your support of this.
Expresses the absolute arrogance and political backwardness of this entire new Commission. So let me be honest, for me and many others, this title is simply unacceptable, an unacceptable concession to the far-right fascists and racists. And Mr. Skinners, there is only one way in which integration can be achieved, and it is through guaranteeing equal rights, adequate support and a strong legal position for everyone living in the EU, whether they are migrants, asylum seekers or refugees. Furthermore, we have long-term resident non-EU nationals obstructed from integration by labour market tests, including migrants and refugees. Are you willing to promote a true right of free movement, starting from amending the long-term residence directive?
Oh, your final minute, Mr. Schinàs.
When you say my final minute, you make...
Oh, just for this block, for every block, every single member of parliament is
okay.
A block of 5 minutes each.
It sounds quite dramatic, my last... Mr. Magid, on the first part of your question, I don't think I have to say more. I think by now you know where I stand. On the second part, I fully agree. I think that there is scope to review our long-term labour resident legislation, which is in place, but which clearly needs a review, and there is a review scheduled. And some of the early reviews of this legislation proves that indeed there are inconsistencies and gaps. And I'm very much willing to consider a legislative amendment of the long-term residence legislation, precisely to address any obstacles that legally residing citizens, people, can have a chance to benefit from labour mobility across the EU. I also know that this is a subject very clear to the heart of Mrs. Sturka sitting next to you there.
Okay. Now we move to the ID group. It's going to be Nicholas Bay representative.
Antonio Rinaldi from ID.
Grazie signor Presidente e signor Commissario designato. Parlerò in italiano. Signora Gentiloni, non ritiene che si dovrebbe riconsiderare il metodo utilizzato dalla Commissione per il calcolo dell'output gap, in quanto l'attuale sistema conduce a una valutazione più bassa del PIL potenziale rispetto alle metodologie usate invece sia dal Fondo Monetario Internazionale che dall'Ocse, con inevitabili saldi strutturali peggiori. Inoltre, in Italia è stato appena depositato, esattamente il 30 di settembre, un budget in cui, invece del promesso miglioramento del 0,6% del saldo strutturale, si pone un peggioramento del medesimo del 0,1%, oltretutto coperto da uno 0,4% di irrealistiche promesse di recupero all'evasione. Lei pensa di approvare questi numeri nonostante lo stesso budget indichi di non rispettare le regole del debito, esattamente a pagina 9 del documento, oppure di dare seguito alla procedura di infrazione come stabilito l'anno scorso? Infine le chiedo se intenderà finalmente occuparsi del problema degli enormi surplus commerciali accumulati da alcuni paesi, specialmente Germania e Olanda, che da più di 3 anni consecutivi superano il 6%, così come previsto dai regolamenti del six-pack. Grazie.
Grazie onorevole Rinaldi. Mi consenta, per quel che riguarda in italiano si dice la nota di aggiornamento al documento di economia e finanza, che è una nota prevista dalla legge italiana, non è ancora una proposta di bilancio e quindi mi consenta su questo di ripetere quanto ho detto già prima rispondendo a un'altra domanda, e cioè che io mi occuperò naturalmente dal 1° novembre, se sarò confermato, della proposta di bilancio dei 27 Paesi, incluso quello italiano, che arriveranno queste proposte entro metà di ottobre e anche quella italiana arriverà entro metà di ottobre. Per quanto riguarda l'output gap e la crescita potenziale, non c'è dubbio che molti osservatori, molte parti politiche hanno in questi anni sottolineato quanto questi indicatori siano difficilmente accertabili con sicurezza. Lo stesso parere dello European Fiscal Board recente suggerisce di adottare dei criteri più certi, per esempio un benchmark sulla spesa pubblica, piuttosto che criteri come l'output gap e la crescita potenziale, che sono soggetti a valutazioni molto discrezionali. È la discussione che faremo nelle prossime settimane, nei prossimi mesi, alla luce della revisione del 2-pack e 6-pack, e credo che andare verso un'interpretazione più semplice o un cambiamento che renda il patto più semplice è importante. Ho finito il mio tempo. Sono perché i paesi che hanno uno spazio fiscale lo utilizzano, anche se so che le scelte di politiche di bilancio sono dei diversi paesi, ma il messaggio della Commissione è: chi ha spazio fiscale fa bene ad utilizzarlo.
Any follow-up? Is okay?
Grazie, sarò velocissimo. Per quanto riguarda il budget presentato il 30 settembre, era del Consiglio dei Ministri, quindi è da considerare sicuramente un documento con un'importanza e con un peso. Chiaramente poi dovrà passare dal Parlamento con tutte le modifiche, però la via principale è stata segnata, sarà quella, le modifiche saranno marginali. Quindi ci riserviamo di valutare come, se lei sarà commissario, come interpreterà questi numeri, visto che il precedente governo è stato, diciamo così, fra virgolette, trattato in maniera diversa. Per quanto riguarda l'output gap, le chiedevo solamente, per l'appunto, che almeno il metodo fosse identico, quello della Commissione, a quello che in genere viene fatto dall'Ocse e dal Fondo Monetario, perlomeno per avere dei dati omogenei. Per il resto siamo curiosi di sapere che tipo di rapporto gli altri paesi avranno, per l'appunto, con la possibilità di poter fare delle politiche fiscali espansive. Noi lo diciamo e ce lo spieghiamo da moltissimo tempo. Le auguro che lei possa andare su questa linea. La ringrazio.
Sì, onorevole Rinaldi, io sulle politiche espansive, su cui non ho avuto tempo nella prima risposta, direi semplicemente questo. Noi, sulla base delle nostre previsioni economiche della Commissione fatte in estate, avevamo dato un'indicazione, come ricorderete, per una broadly neutral fiscal stance. Ora, il 7 novembre dovremmo avere le nuove previsioni, che ci diranno soprattutto, credo, una cosa, e cioè se questo rallentamento della crescita, non parliamo di recessione, parliamo di rallentamento della crescita, è destinato a riprendersi immediatamente o può durare. Questo sarà molto importante per individuare un fiscal stance che la Commissione indichi ai Paesi membri per il prossimo periodo.
Thank you. Mr. Johan van Overveld from ECR.
Mr. Gentiloni, good morning. I'm over here. Good morning. A lot has been said already about Stability and Growth Pact, fiscal rules, fiscal matters. Now, you're also responsible, or you will be responsible, if confirmed, for Eurostat, where we still have that rule that public investment has to be taken into the budget of the year of execution of the investment, which is, of course, economically a totally absurd rule. There's no private company that is not working with depreciation schedules for investment. I take the liberty to think that changing that rule would be by far the most efficient way to stimulate investment and so to broaden fiscal space for countries. Will you change that rule?
Well, thank you for your question. The question allows me also to state something I deem very relevant, because when I was designated commissioner and I knew by the president that I would be also responsible for Eurostat, apart the two direction, ECFIN and Taxud, that you know very well for their effectiveness and quality. The message I got, and I'm really interested to repeat to you, is that the first thing that a commissioner should do, having the responsibility of Eurostat, is to keep Eurostat's independence. So about the criteria, about the numbers, about the policies, I know also from my experience as Prime Minister that politicians and members of governments are not always happy of the content and of the timing of statistics. But this is the rule. My first reaction to your question is, in my capacity, being responsible for Eurostat will mean having no influence in their autonomous criteria. It is up to the Parliament, to the College to discuss, but not to the Commissioner with the responsibility towards Eurostat to decide if this criteria is or not correct.
Any follow-up?
Fiscal matters also have to do with taxes. I hear you plead and read in your text that you are in favor of fiscal harmonization, and I understand also that you are in favor of qualified voting on taxation matters. Translated in daily language, that means for me that you will be more in, or should I say, running, if I may use that word, for the larger countries instead of the smaller countries. What will you do with the legitimate taxation interests of smaller countries?
Well, I will try to run for consensus. And this, I think, is mandatory in a job of a European Commissioner. And it is especially mandatory on taxation, where we have, apart the Article 116, we have the rule of unanimity. We all know that the last proposal on significant digital presence presented by the Commission was approved by, if I remember well, 24 member states and not by 3 member states. But this killed for the moment and not for the future the proposal. So the role of member states, big or small, on taxation is very relevant. But we have public opinion, we have the Parliament, we have the passerelle clause, we have Article 116. We cannot accept the idea to avoid any decision on taxation.
Thank you. Manon Aubry from GUE.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Monsieur Gentiloni. Alors, je vais repartir sur les questions d'évasion fiscale qui, je pense, devraient occuper notre agenda pleinement. Je ne vous refais pas toute la liste des scandales d'évasion fiscale, des Paradise, des Papers, Panama Papers, LuxLeaks, et j'en passe. Elle est longue et elle implique de nombreuses entreprises multinationales. Certaines entreprises, d'ailleurs, que vous connaissez bien, à en croire par votre portefeuille d'action avant d'être commissaire, comme Amazon ou LVMH, qui d'ailleurs ne sont pas réputés pour leur comportement exemplaire en matière fiscale. Et parmi les pays qui ont été éclaboussés, rares sont ceux qui ont été inscrits sur la liste européenne de paradis fiscaux, le Panama ou les Bermudes par exemple n'ayant fait qu'un passage très éclair. Et avant d'être élu pour ce mandat, je travaillais pour l'ONG Oxfam, que vous devez bien connaître, qui, avec de nombreuses ONG que vous avez peut-être aperçues à l'extérieur du bâtiment, ont organisé une action ce matin et elles n'ont eu de cesse de pointer les lacunes de cette liste de paradis fiscaux qui était également soulevée dans le rapport de la commission Taxe 3, tant dans l'examen qui pèche par son opacité, dans les critères qui sont utilisés, que dans le suivi des pays une fois qu'ils sont retirés de la liste. Alors, quelles mesures comptez-vous prendre pour rendre cette liste plus objective, sans ingérence politique? Allez-vous réformer le groupe obscur du Code de conduite qui a prouvé son inefficacité? Et comptez-vous revoir les critères pour couvrir l'ensemble des pratiques fiscales dommageables et notamment considérer le taux d'imposition zéro comme un critère à part entière?
Bon, merci de votre question. Honorable Aubry, bon, en ce qui concerne mon portefeuille fiscal, vous l'avez mentionné, je l'ai liquidé. Je l'avais déclaré avant d'envoyer mes documents à le comité Yuri. Ce n'était pas un portefeuille millionnaire. J'ai lu dans quelques journaux italiens que c'était un portefeuille millionnaire, mais en tout cas, il a été liquidé. Je crois que vous avez parfaitement raison sur le fait qu'on doit être efficace et, si possible, plus efficace dans le contraste aux paradis fiscaux. Est-ce que ce que nous avons fait dans les dernières années n'a eu aucune efficace? Franchement, je ne le crois pas. Mais quand même, je ne suis pas en train de défendre quelque chose que j'ai fait personnellement parce que je n'étais pas ici, mais je pense que le Parlement doit être fier du fait qu'il y a eu des progrès. Aussi, la blacklist dont vous parlez a sûrement quelque chose à améliorer, mais je peux vous le confirmer indirectement aussi en tant que ministre des Affaires étrangères. Dans beaucoup de pays dans le monde, le soft power de la blacklist européenne est très fort et ça fonctionne et ça fait changer attitude entre les pires régimes fiscaux dans le monde. On doit faire de plus et on doit le faire ensemble.
Monsieur Gentiloni, alors ce n'était certes pas un portefeuille de millionnaire, il y avait quand même 110 000 euros, notamment dans l'entreprise Amazon. En tout, ça faisait plusieurs centaines de milliers d'euros. J'espère que ça ne vous découragera pas d'agir pour réguler ces entreprises dans le futur. Ma deuxième question, c'est un enjeu de cohérence. Vous le dites, on va sanctionner les États qui sont listés sur la liste de paradis fiscaux, mais qu'en est-il des États membres de l'Union européenne, des États comme l'Irlande ou le Luxembourg, et comment l'Union européenne peut-elle être crédible quand elle abrite en son sein parmi les pires paradis fiscaux du monde? D'ailleurs, en réponse à mon collègue qui s'est exprimé avant, en fait, les pays qui bloquent au niveau européen, ce ne sont pas les gros pays, c'est plutôt des petits pays comme le Luxembourg ou l'Irlande. Et donc, on voit que l'Union européenne est en train de se transformer en une course à la concurrence fiscale où les États redoublent d'ingéniosité en pratiques fiscales dommageables. Donc, qu'allez-vous faire pour mettre un terme à ces pratiques fiscales dommageables? Êtes-vous prêt à travailler à un taux minimum d'imposition sur les sociétés au niveau européen? Et êtes-vous prêt à demander à ce que les États membres de l'Union européenne soient examinés selon les mêmes critères que les États tiers? Et question bonus, en parlant de sujets bloqués au Conseil, il y a le sujet de la transparence fiscale. Allez-vous débloquer le reporting public pays par pays? Merci.
Oui, merci. Je crois qu'on ne peut pas accepter l'idée d'une agressive concurrence fiscale entre pays européens. c'est une réalité qu'on ne peut pas accepter. Il faut y travailler. Le minimal taxation est la solution, une des solutions. Vous savez bien que le projet n'est pas totalement démarré au niveau du Conseil, mais je crois aussi qu'il y a une mobilisation de l'opinion publique, une force du Parlement et pour ma part une claire décision du commissaire aux affaires économiques et je crois de la Commission. Et on y travaillera et on va trouver des solutions.
Thank you. Now we move to the second round of questions. Please let me remind you of the speaking time. So I will really kindly ask you to keep it strictly to 1 minute for questions and 1 minute for follow-up. Thank you. So now it's time for José García Margallo y Marfil from EPP.
Presidenta, bienvenido, comisario designado. Ha hablado en su intervención de desaceleración económica. Hay autores que creen que estamos en algo más serio, que estamos en vísperas de una crisis, que no será una crisis de demanda como la de Lehman Brothers, sino una crisis de oferta derivada de factores que usted conoce muy bien como ministro de Asuntos Exteriores, las tensiones entre China y Estados Unidos, tarifas, divisas, guerras tecnológicas, Brexit y la posibilidad de un alza en el precio del petróleo como consecuencia de Oriente Medio. Si eso es así, es obvio que la única terapia serían las reformas estructurales, pero a medio plazo, de acuerdo con Christine Lagarde y con Draghi, Lagarde es lo más parecido a Draghi que hemos encontrado en el mercado, habría que tirar de política monetaria y flexibilizar la política presupuestaria. 3 preguntas. ¿Cuánto tiempo cree que podemos seguir con intereses históricamente tan bajos sin afectar a la rentabilidad de los bancos y a la estabilidad financiera? Segunda, cuando habla usted de flexibilización, ¿está pensando en no incluir, no ya efectos estadísticos, que ya se ha hablado, las inversiones o las inversiones en determinados sectores, transición ecológica, ayuda a crear campeones digitales? ¿Cuáles serían las reformas estructurales que caen bajo su competencia que habría que añadir a estas políticas que, insisto, que serán aspirinas para cruzar el cáncer y no reformas estructurales? Y para que quede claro, yo fui uno de los que llamó a Markus Ferber. No diré lo que dije por elemental prudencia, pero se lo puede usted imaginar.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Margallo. I'm not able to answer in Spanish, so I will do in English. Yes, we have. I was referring before to the November forecast because this institutionally for us is the milestone. But in any way, everybody is looking to forecast delivered by different institutions around the world. And we know that we have a serious slowdown and that this slowdown could have a longer lasting than expected 6 months or 1 year ago. We will see. So in this case, but in any case, we can't rely only on monetary policy. Then we are also discussing monetary policy decision. I am not commenting the ECB decisions by definition. I will not comment the ECB decision. But we know, at least in this, I think we are all agreeing, that only monetary policy is not sufficient to face a difficult situation and a possible long-lasting slowdown in our growth. not recession, but growth slowing down. What should we add to this? A more coordinated fiscal policy, investments, and structural reforms. It is interesting, I think, that in the last Euro summit, one of the decisions that was taken concerned this budget instrument for convergence and competitiveness, aimed to encourage structural reforms. We will see how it will be funded and how it will be effective, but the aim is clear, and it is in the direction you were mentioning.
Any follow-up?
No sé lo que ha soñado esta noche, pero 3 veces se ha referido a 27 presupuestos. Todavía somos 28. Se ha hablado del tema del fraude fiscal y se ha hablado de aduanas. Y hablando del Brexit, el problema de la frontera de Irlanda del Norte con Irlanda, que ya es un buen problema en sí, es mayor porque ese sería el precedente que el gobierno británico quiere utilizar para las relaciones futuras entre todo el Reino Unido y el resto de la Unión Europea, en el intento declarado por el actual gobierno de crearnos un Singapur al otro lado del canal. Segundo, hemos hablado de paraísos fiscales y yo quiero ser muy concreto. En las puertas de casa tenemos uno que se llama Gibraltar, en donde no hay ganancias de capital, no hay impuestos sobre la riqueza, no hay impuestos sobre ventas, el impuesto sobre el juego es del 0,15% y donde el impuesto sobre sociedades es un 10% que solo se aplica a las actividades realizadas en el peñón, es decir, a ninguna. Eso ha determinado una diferencia de rentas de 1 a 6 entre el Peñón y el área circundante. Es verdad que ha habido responsabilidad de los gobiernos españoles sucesivos por no haber hecho algo más. Me gustaría preguntar qué vamos a hacer en materia de paraísos fiscales y qué piensa el comisario que hay que hacer para que en las futuras relaciones del Reino Unido y el resto de la Unión Europea no se establezca un régimen aduanero tan fiscal que equivalga a ninguno, con graves riesgos para los tesoros y las finanzas de la Unión Europea.
Well, it should be very clear from our point of view that the day after a no-deal Brexit, UK will be for us a third country. It is not what we wanted, it is not what was our project, but it could be the autonomous decision of the United Kingdom. We will see. I've seen the dialogue between Jean-Claude Juncker and the British Prime Minister. For us, I only make 2 points. One, the Irish border will not be a hard border. We have to give full respect to the Good Friday agreements. We can't create a new enormous problem in Europe after Brexit in Ireland. Second point, I remember the difficulties when we had the deal with Prime Minister May about Gibraltar. In this case, an agreement was reached in some way by from your government and EU and UK. We have to keep these commitments.
Thank you. Now, Joachim Schuster from S&D.
Ja, vielen Dank. Herr Gentiloni, die Europäische Wirtschafts- und Währungsunion, die Europäische Wirtschafts- und Währungsunion beinhaltet ja eine sehr restriktive Grundorientierung in der Wirtschafts- und Finanzpolitik. Haushaltskonsolidierung und die Einhaltung von Verschuldungszielen stehen im Mittelpunkt. In ihren politischen Leitlinien hat nun Ursula von der Leyen einen Sustainable Europe Investment Plan angekündigt, der die enorme Summe von 1.000 Milliarden Euro Investitionen mobilisieren soll. Eine derartige Summe zusätzlicher Investitionen wird sicherlich nicht allein vom privaten Sektor aufgebracht werden können. Im Gegenteil, der öffentliche Sektor spielt aus meiner Sicht eine Schlüsselrolle, um das aktuelle Marktversagen auszugleichen und Investitionen anzustoßen, die einen Beitrag zur Nachhaltigkeit und zur Bekämpfung des Klimawandels erbringen. Deswegen stimmen Sie damit überein, dass der European Green Deal die Mobilisierung von privaten und vor allen Dingen auch öffentlichen Investitionen leisten muss, eine Strategie zum Ersatz fossiler Energieträger und einen Vorschlag zu EU Green Bond Standards umfassen muss? Und muss damit nicht auch die einseitige Ausrichtung der Wirtschafts- und Finanzpolitik in der EU auf den Prüfstand gestellt werden?
Well, thank you, Honorable Schuster. Yes, the European Green Deal is a very big priority in the new Commission. President von der Leyen made it very clear, and personally, I really agree with this. The 1 trillion figure is very impressive. I agree with you. I think we will work very strongly, personally, with Vice President Timmermans, with Vice President Dombrovskis, because we need to create the good environment to mobilize private capitals, obviously, but I think that to reach such a commitment, we need to join to capital, to private investment, also public grants and mobilizing public investments around Europe. This plan, the Sustainable Europe Investment Plan, is starting in parallel with the InvestEU plan, and I think that InvestEU plan will give to the sustainable plan a strong contribution because of the capacities that InvestEU hub, as we call it, will have to contribute in new projects capable of having strong capital participation. We should also continue in the ongoing work on defining standard for green bonds. This, I think, is one of our goals for the near future. And the work is already ongoing, as you know.
Any follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Ja, eine erfolgreiche Umsetzung einer solchen Investitionsstrategie, nehmen wir die mal an, insbesondere wenn es gelingt, die ökologische Transformation der Wirtschaft einzuleiten, das würde ja auch die Wettbewerbssituation der europäischen Wirtschaft gegenüber ausländischen Konkurrenten verändern. Und um gleiche und faire Wettbewerbsbedingungen zu gewährleisten, ist aus meiner Sicht ein Green Border Adjustment erforderlich, wie das ja auch von Ursula von der Leyen als Aufgabe der kommenden Kommission auf die Tagesordnung gesetzt wurde. Was sollten denn aus Ihrer Sicht die wesentlichen Eckpunkte eines solchen Green Border Adjustments sein?
It's, as I said, is an ongoing work in our ECFIN services. The message is very clear, I think. There is a growing investment, capital investment availability all over the world on investment with a purpose, and specifically on investment with environmental purpose. So our capacity to give with our green bonds a benchmark to the markets, I think will be very useful and appreciated, and will fall in a very positive and favorable environment from investors. It would be strange that EU could be absent in this field that is now very, very positive all over the world in capitals.
Thank you. Before giving the floor to the next speaker, I just remind you that we run 15 minutes late, so please try to keep the time for a form of respect for the next speakers. So, Gilles Boyer, Renew Europe.
Oui, merci, monsieur le commissaire désigné. Alors, Je suis ici, monsieur. Merci. Pendant la dernière campagne électorale, j'ai été très surpris d'être souvent interrogé par nos concitoyens sur le sujet de l'harmonisation fiscale à l'intérieur de l'Union européenne. Je pensais que c'était un sujet technique et je découvre que c'est un sujet politique et qui mobilise et qui occupe beaucoup de nos concitoyens et, si j'en juge par les questions de mes collègues, pas seulement français. Alors vous l'avez évoqué et je vous en remercie et nous sommes tous d'accord pour considérer que la réponse de l'Union européenne n'est pas à la hauteur de cette attente citoyenne, en particulier et essentiellement du fait de la procédure de l'unanimité qui a elle aussi été évoquée. Alors évidemment, il faudra réunir l'unanimité pour renoncer à l'unanimité, et c'est tout le paradoxe auquel nous devons faire face. Et même sur nos bancs, je ne suis pas sûr que nous parvenions à l'unanimité sur ce sujet, mais nous sommes néanmoins nombreux à vouloir que cette mandature soit marquée sur ce sujet par des avancées concrètes. Et on m'a toujours appris dans la vie qu'en présence d'un problème très compliqué que je ne peux pas vous demander de résoudre en 1 minute, ni même en 2, il fallait décomposer ce problème en une multitude de petites tâches qui, à elles seules, semblent plus accessibles. Et donc ma question sera, sur ce sujet, quelle est la première action concrète que vous pourriez proposer de manière à ce que notre mandature, que j'espère nous allons faire ensemble, soit marquée par une avancée concrète dont nous pourrions faire état auprès des citoyens européens. Merci beaucoup.
Bon, merci. Honorable Boyer, vous le disiez, il faut décider à l'unanimité de renoncer à l'unanimité. Apparemment, c'est très difficile. Non, pas apparemment. C'est difficile, mais dans mes remarques au début, je disais qu'on a besoin d'un effort politique extraordinaire. Et c'est seulement la politique en tant que soutien de l'opinion publique, soutien des stakeholders et awareness de la part des pays qui sont dans une différente position qui peut nous faire avancer. C'est un petit peu différent l'article 116, parce que s'il y a des claires conditions juridiques, c'est peut-être, je ne dirais pas plus facile, mais quand même c'est peut-être plus clair. Mais dans les passerelle clauses, il faut un énorme effort politique. Seulement un petit exemple, je vous donnerai, et ça serait une des premières initiatives que je prendrai. Quand le Conseil européen a décidé de ne pas procéder sur la digital tax, les 3 pays qui n'étaient pas à bord ont dit qu'ils n'étaient pas contraires en général, mais ils voulaient attendre les développements du consensus à niveau international. C'est ce qu'on verra dans les prochains mois. Et on retournera à voir cette position dans 2020. Je m'arrête parce que...
30 seconds for follow-up. I'm sorry, but...
C'est 30 secondes, non, juste pour dire que vous avez évoqué les négociations internationales au niveau mondial sur ce sujet, au G20, à l'OCDE, et qu'évidemment l'Union européenne ne sera forte dans ces négociations que si elle peut faire un front uni, et donc parvenir déjà ici entre nous à des positions communes. Nous serons nombreux à être très vigilants sur ce sujet au cours des mois qui s'ouvrent, et Et merci d'y être également vigilant à la place qui, je le pense, sera la vôtre.
Oui, on essaiera de le faire dans la meilleure des manières. Je pense qu'on a quelques chances en plus dans cette discussion à l'OECD de celles que nous pouvions penser il y a quelques mois. Je ne suis pas totalement optimiste, mais je dirais que je suis moins pessimiste qu'il y a quelques mois, parce que la discussion entre pays européens et États-Unis a progressé et il y a quelques espaces de solutions possibles.
Thank you. Now, José Manuel Fernández, Employment EPP.
Presidente, caro Comissário indigitado, é responsável, conjuntamente com o Comissário para o Emprego, pela prevenção de impactos negativos aos níveis do emprego causados por choques internos e externos aos Estados-membros. Já aqui foi falado do European Unemployment Benefit Reinsurance Scheme. Disse que devíamos ser ambiciosos, mas não foi claro naquilo que é a sua posição. Afinal, este esquema deve ser subsídios ou deve ser empréstimos aos Estados-membros ou uma mistura dos dois? E depois, é para todos os Estados-membros da União Europeia ou é para os Estados-membros da zona euro? E ainda, que requisitos é que os Estados-membros devem obedecer para terem acesso a este reinsurance scheme, este resseguro para o desemprego?
Well, thank you, Honorable Fernandez. The task I was given in my mission letter is the definition of this scheme. So it is a task that I will not conclude this task in our hearing because it is not so evident. You were already stressing the main issues that we have to deal with. And I've already said what this tool should not be. No permanent transfer, no weakening of structural reforms, and to be an automatic disbursement mechanism. Then we will discuss exactly the two or three issues you were saying. Loans or support to budget. Obviously, especially in this situation of the financial markets, loans is a weaker tool than direct support to budgets. But direct support to budget needs to be highly funded because if you have external shocks relevant and in several countries, to give support to budget without a relevant and serious funding is not feasible. Someone is studying, and in the definition we will talk about this, of the possibility of having an initial scheme based on loans and a transition towards a direct support to budget. We will see it, I assure you, in the next weeks, because I'm tasked to do this definition very quickly, and we'll do it together.
A pergunta é se vai seguir um método comunitário para a concretização deste reinsurance scheme para o desemprego. E, nesse caso, se for empréstimos, terá de ter uma garantia dentro do orçamento. E a pergunta é qual é o montante que acham que deve ter essa garantia. Se for subvenções, subsídios, há de ter que ter também um montante, e a pergunta é se esse montante financeiro já está definido ou o seu limite.
Practically, you answered to your questions, because what we have to define implies that in the case of a scheme with loans, or in the case of the scheme with support to the budget, we have different consequences. On the first case, these consequences are relatively easier to tackle. In the second case, the direct transfer, they imply also to be discussed in our multi-annual financial framework, because they need to have a funding in our multi-annual financial framework. So this will be, I think, in a few weeks, the definition of the scheme and of the different consequences on our methods in our community decisions.
Thank you. Iro Einauloma, S&D.
Mr. Gentiloni, you have a really impressive political CV, and I do think that when you have tough duties waiting you, it's an advantage. One of the big themes is taxation. I have also got some phone calls, and people have been urging that the European Union ought to go further on the field of taxation so that we can be sure that everybody pays its share of tax. And in this respect, a fair digital taxation is essential, as has been mentioned here. Can you specify your main priorities regarding taxation of large multinationals and particularly the tech giants? And second, could you outline how you see your role in the ongoing international negotiations on digital taxation?
Well, thank you, Honorable Einauloma. Well, it is the target is clear, I think. The digital revolution brought for the first time to a situation that we cannot accept, that value is created, and is created frequently through data and through our data, our personal data. But taxes are not in the same places where value is created. So this, I think, is totally unacceptable. My point is, well, we decided after some internal difficulties among member states in delivering on the Commission proposal, we decided to try to take the best from the international discussion, from G20 and OECD discussion. When this was decided, it could appear like a sort of exit strategy in front of difficulties. But now, what I understand is that there is a real worry coming from, especially from the United States, real concern, and a real availability to find compromise in OECD. Europe is having a very relevant role in this case, and I am rather optimistic that we can find solution at global level next year.
Any follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Gentiloni, in your written response, you said that if there is an absence of an international agreement, you will come forward with an European proposal on digital tax. So is it so that we can wait the results either from the worldwide negotiations or from the proposal of the Commission already on next year, 2020?
Yes, my program is very clear. If there is no consensus emerging next year, we will have a European proposal. This means that in the third quarter of next year, we will work on the European proposal. We will not jump the gun of the European proposal during the international debate, but I'm very serious in committing myself and the Commission to have our proposal next year if the international consensus is not there.
Thank you. Ernst Urtasun from the Greens.
Sí, señor Gentiloni, gracias por su presencia hoy aquí. Estamos a las puertas de una desaceleración y usted, como comisario de Economía, la va a tener que afrontar sin que tengamos los mecanismos de estabilización puestos en marcha y con unas normas que han provocado que la política económica europea haya cometido graves errores en el pasado. Lo digo porque los riesgos de volver a cometer esos errores son muy grandes. A pesar de ello, tenemos que avanzar en esas reformas y usted hoy ha anunciado y ha dicho que procederemos a la revisión del two-pack y el six-pack, cosa que evidentemente celebramos. Y a mí me gustaría saber qué opina de que recientemente, por ejemplo, el Consejo Fiscal Europeo haya dicho que nuestras normas tienen un claro sesgo procíclico e incluso en esta misma sala el presidente del Consejo de Gobierno del Banco Central Europeo se pronunció en los mismos términos. Me gustaría saber si usted considera efectivamente que las normas actuales tienen o no un sesgo procíclico y qué tipo de cambios cree usted en esa revisión que tenemos que hacer del two-pack y el six-pack que podríamos hacer para evitar ese efecto procíclico que tienen de forma muy evidente. Gracias.
Well, the risk of pro-cyclical effect is very clear. I think that the European Fiscal Board also stated this risk in a very clear way. What we will have to discuss at the end of the review that is ongoing, that will be concluded middle of December, of the two-pack and six-pack, is the way forward. Because I personally, I have to say, appreciated the European Fiscal Board philosophy. Simple, enforceable, and anti-cyclical. And this philosophy is also considering many objections that were made also this morning towards some too complicated and too discretionary elements of the SGP rules until now. But we have to know that the decision on how to go forward after the review will be taken by the College and by European institutions, and it will not be an easy decision. Personally, I always stress the word ambition, so I would like very much to change in a more anti-cyclical, more simple and more enforceable way our rules. But I respect the opinion that says, okay, be cautious because we can solve the same problem with some interpretation tools and without opening the box of legislative changement. We will decide before the end of this year.
Follow up?
gran parte recaerá en usted la posibilidad de construir una dinámica política que pueda empujar hacia esa dirección y, en cualquier caso, que sepa que este comité creo que así lo deseará. Como en otro elemento que creo que es importante en las normas, como es el procedimiento de desequilibrios macroeconómicos, que usted en sus respuestas escritas menciona de una manera inteligente. En el pasado hemos tenido, digamos, una aplicación poco efectiva, no simétrica del MIP y también, por lo tanto, mi última pregunta, me gustaría saber exactamente cómo piensa que el MIP puede funcionar mejor y, particularmente, menciona usted la cuestión del mercado inmobiliario, de los riesgos del mercado inmobiliario en los desequilibrios. Me gustaría que me desarrollara un poco brevemente sus ideas al respecto.
Yes, the analysis of macro imbalances, I think, was very helpful because it was useful to give both the Commission and Member States guidelines, ideas, suggestions, not only on the traditional financial issues, but on other issues that are the private debt, the housing market, as we were saying, the health situation. These conditions are fundamental, and I think that we should work on strengthening them in the near future.
Oui, Monsieur Sinkevicius, je suis là. Bonjour. Le GIEC a publié il y a quelques jours un rapport spécial sur les océans. Il est très inquiétant et nous force à agir désormais de manière résolue pour faire face aux multiples pollutions. Il y a d'abord une crise d'asphyxie. Les zones mortes en mer ont été multipliées par 10 depuis 1950 et les océans ont perdu 77 milliards de tonnes d'oxygène. Que comptez-vous faire pour réduire drastiquement notre recours aux engrais chimiques et à l'élevage intensif qui en sont en grande partie responsables? Nous subissons aussi des problèmes de pollution sonore. Le trafic maritime, la prospection sismique, les sonars ou les forages sous-marins perturbent les espèces animales, notamment les cétacés, dont la communication et les techniques de chasse reposent sur le son. Êtes-vous prêt à réduire la vitesse des navires et à interdire le trafic maritime dans et aux abords des aires maritimes protégées? Enfin, il y a le problème du tourisme, notamment dans les zones polaires. Son expansion pose des problèmes de pollution par le fioul lourd, par les eaux usées et d'introduction d'espèces invasives, notamment de certaines algues. Vous engagez-vous à agir pour la limitation du tourisme dans les régions polaires et à prescrire l'utilisation d'un carburant hautement raffiné en Arctique, comme c'est déjà le cas pour l'Antarctique? Bref, vous avez dit vouloir un traité global rattaché à la Convention des Nations Unies sur le droit de la mer. Quelles mesures concrètes voulez-vous inscrire dans un tel traité?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. You are absolutely right. Oceans are key, and it's key to preserve them healthy. It will be good for environment, for our fishermen and women communities, coastal communities. And we know the main reasons. Of course, it's which has to be tackled. It's overfishing. It's not enough protected areas. It's also pollution, marine litter. We have to also improve international legal framework so that not only EU member states would be on board and subordinate and respect the rules, but the others as well. And we can tackle, and I think this portfolio has everything to tackle it successfully. First of all, Biodiversity 2030 strategy. It is important. It will include oceans. Secondly, of course, it is circular economy plan. When we talk about the marine litter, when we talk about shipments of waste, it's, again, it's an opportunity, I think, for our economy. And with the working circular economy, with the resources reuse, we can very successfully tackle these causes. Of course, it will require much more. We will need to have on board other sectors. Agriculture, extremely important. We have already problems in the Baltic Sea, mainly due to nutrient runoffs from industry, from agriculture, unsustainable. So it will definitely have to tackle all the causes, and it is within this portfolio, and I think if I'm confirmed, this will be one of my key duties to show that it was a great solution to make this portfolio together, environmental, oceans and fisheries, all sectors which cannot exist without each other. They are all connected.
Merci pour votre réponse. Je suis 100% d'accord avec vous quand vous dites que cette question-là ne peut pas être traitée que par l'Union européenne elle-même. Et donc je profite de cette relance pour vous poser une question à propos de la mer Méditerranée, qui est une mer qui m'est chère, qui nous est chère à un certain nombre d'entre nous, qui est une mer extrêmement polluée. La concentration des plastiques est 4 fois plus élevée que dans l'océan Pacifique. Ma question est simple, il y a quelque chose qui s'appelle l'Union pour la Méditerranée. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord pour activer ce cadre, pour obtenir des actions concrètes pour dépolluer enfin la mer Méditerranée? Merci.
Of course. Thank you very much for your question and care regarding Mediterranean Sea Basin. Of course, it is important, and it's important to work with our partners, not only on cleaning up, on using our tools. We are happy to share our best practices, but it is important also for the CFP implementation. It is important to tackle illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. So this is, I think, is the best way to spend resources, helping our partners as well, fight with the causes, help them by giving best advices, by showing our best practices and having them on board. That's the only way. Of course, EU has a unique position to lead this way.
So we are going to enter into the second part, Mr. Commissioner-designate, of the hearing. We are going to have the 11 remaining questions following the don't rules, starting, and then we will mix the committees, so no Envy on one side and Pesh on the other side, which is, to my view, a good way to proceed. So we will start with the EPP, Mr. Vasilis.
Mr. Commissioner-designate, I want to come back to your answer on wolves. Number of them is increasing, up to 13 or even 14,000 individuals throughout EU. The ecological balance has been disturbed and agriculture is suffering permanent damage. Similarly, since adoption of updated bird directive, population of such birds as cormorants has increased. Angling fishery stakeholders claim that it came to an unacceptable and unsustainable threat to fishery interests. This problem is relevant for Baltic Sea region, including our Lithuania. Do you agree that more flexibility should be given to the member states while regulating population of some protected species?
If you may allow me, like Mr. Mažylis, we are from the same country, so I will respond in Lithuanian. Gerbiamas profesoriau Liudai Mažyli, dėkoju Jums už klausimą. Pirmiausia, ir iš tiesų tikrai aktualus klausimas užduotas jau vieno iš kolegų. Būtent direktyva, apie kurią Jūs kalbate, ji suteikia lankstumo šalims narėms. Ir aš kaip ir sakiau, aš puikiai suprantu ūkininkus, tikrai suprantu tą, sakykime, skausmą, kai yra prarandama avis, tačiau, tai yra koegzistavimo klausimas. Aš manau, kad mes jį pirmiausia turime spręsti ne kulka, o būtent spręsti, ar visos priemonės buvo įgyvendintos apsisaugoti nuo to paties vilko. Ar buvo pastatyta tvora, ar buvo panaudotos kitos priemonės, kurios yra siūlomos. Ir kas svarbiausia, tai jau dabar yra finansuojama Europos Sąjungos lėšomis. Lygiai taip pat ir praradus, sakykime, gyvulį yra visiškai 100% kompensuojama. Iš kitos pusės direktyva suteikia lankstumą. Ir kalbant apie tuos pačius kormoranus, kuriuos mes matome ir matome jų padarinius, ypatingai mūsų nuostabioje Neringoje, aš manau, kad ši direktyva suteikia pakankamai lankstumo būtent šalims narėms, sakykime, įvesti savo savireguliaciją šioj vietoj ir jeigu yra grėsmė žuvininkystiai, ar tai pačiai augalijai, bioįvairoviai, pritaikyti tas priemonės.
Tai ne tik tai pajūrį, jau 200 kilometrų nuo jūros, mano gimtajam Kaune, aš pastebėjau kormoranus, kurių anksčiau, žinot, per mano gyvenimėlį dar tikrai niekada nebuvo užtikta. Ir manyčiau, kad čia net tokia paprasta išeitis, juk pagal paukščių direktyvą sąmoningas gaudymas, žudymas, trikdymas, lizdų ardymas, kiaušinių atėmimas iš paukščių, tai visa tai reiškia yra draudžiama, o kita vertus labai jau platus žvejų pažeidžiamas interesas ir, kaip jūs čia teisingai užsiminėt, ko gero netgi yra grėsmė biologiniai įvairoviai. Tai norėtųsi vis tiek konkretesnio jūsų požiūrio ir konkretesnių siūlymų šiuo atžvilgiu.
Šiek tiek grįžtant prie direktyvos, nes aš jaučiu tokį norą galbūt atverti direktyvą. Būtent šie rūmai komitetas balsavo, kad direktyvos nereikėtų atverti, kad direktyva yra gera. Ir aš manau, vėlgi, aš grįžtu prie savo nuomonės, kad jis suteikia pakankamai lankstumo. Ir mes turime pasižiūrėti, ar mūsų šalies, ar kitų valstybių atveju, ar vis dėlto tas lankstumas buvo pakankamai panaudotas. Ir aš tikiu, kad žmonės dirbantis komisijoje tikrai gali padėti, gali konsultuoti. Ir akivaizdu, ką jūs ir paminėjote, jeigu yra grėsmė bioįvairoviai, žuvininkystei, tai yra pakankamos priežastys būtent ir nurodytos tame lankstume įstatymo taikymo. Ačiū Jums.
For SND, Delara Burkhardt.
Vielen Dank. Sie haben heute schon sehr oft über die wichtige und große Rolle vom Schutz der Artenvielfalt im Kampf gegen die Klimakrise gesprochen. Und Sie haben ja auch zu Recht das Wort Massensterben benutzt, weil wenn 1 Million der Lebewesen und Pflanzenarten vom Aussterben bedroht sind, dann kann man ruhig vom Massensterben sprechen. Gleichzeitig wird die EU in ihrer eigenen Strategie zur Erhaltung der biologischen Vielfalt ihre festgelegten Ziele bis 2020 nicht erreichen und sie wird den Verlust der biologischen Vielfalt nicht aufhalten. Vor diesem Hintergrund möchte ich Sie fragen, werden Sie ehrgeizige und verbindliche Ziele und Maßnahmen in der EU-Strategie zur Erhaltung der biologischen Vielfalt bis 2030 festlegen? Und wenn ja, welche? Wie stellen Sie sicher, dass der Schutz der biologischen Vielfalt die notwendige Finanzierung und auch personellen Ressourcen erhält? Und wie wollen Sie den Rückgang von Bienen und anderen Bestäubern bekämpfen, da Bestäuber eine wichtige Rolle bei der Aufrechterhaltung, bei der Ernährungssicherheit und eben für die biologische Vielfalt betreffen?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I think we had targets. We had targets for 2010. We had targets for 2020. We will definitely have targets, and they will be ambitious because there is no other way for 2030. Unfortunately, I think targets is not enough. They have to be measured and monitored. It is important to have a review mechanism. Secondly, it is utmost important because if we talk about major causes, it's a land and sea use change, it's a overexploitation of natural resources, climate change, pollution, and invasive alien species. So it's all concerned with the climate change. So we have to fight the causes. And as I've mentioned at the beginning, and you very well noted, yes, that will need a funding, especially recreation of species. Natura 2000 areas, proper protection, that will need a funding. But funding is not enough. And I truly hope, cooperating with the Vice President Franz Timmermans, we will achieve it, that these ambitious goals of biodiversity 2030, those targets, they are also implied into other legislative like agriculture activities, one of the key industry activities, transport, and we have to use tools which are provided for us, impact assessment. They have to be done very carefully. Sometimes I think member states, as I see from experiences, they try to change it or go around it, and that's not a good practice, especially when we speak about Natura 2000 areas where we have many protected species out there.
Okay. Ja, vielen Dank für Ihre konkrete Antwort. Ich hätte da gleich die Anschlussfrage. Sie haben auch über messbare Ziele für die Verhandlungen in Kunming gesprochen. Und ich glaube eben auch, dass es sehr wichtig ist, diese messbare Ziele zu haben. Vielleicht könnten Sie da noch konkreter werden, mit was für einer Zielsetzung Sie in die Verhandlungen reingehen wollen. Und die zweite Frage, die ich noch anschließen wollen würde, Sie haben gesagt, auch völlig zu Recht, dass Ziele nicht reichen. Und deswegen frage ich Sie, wie Sie ja gerade bei der Einhaltung und beim Vielfalt für den Einsatz naturbasierter Lösungen in Europa, um den zu steigern, werden Sie da ein rechtsverbindliches Ziel für die Wiederherstellung degradierter Ökosysteme vorschlagen? Also eine Rechtsverbindlichkeit, damit wir uns nicht auf die groben Ziele verlassen müssen.
Thank you. Regarding measurable targets, so of course, measured target can be increase of protected areas of the oceans and sea basins, increase to, for example, 30%. But I think I'll be definitely flexible here regarding biodiversity 2030 targets to discuss it also with the committee. What's the vision of the committee? What are the keys which we have to achieve? I think it is very important to ensure implementation. When we talk about binding legal acts, there is lots of binding legal acts which are not properly implemented in member states. And zero toleration on not implementation legal acts. This is the way to approach it. Regarding the targets, we will deliver a biodiversity strategy, but of course, I don't have it yet now. I am open to discuss it as well with the committee.
Thank you. For the EPP, Niklas Herbst.
Ich möchte gerne den Fokus auf unsere, hier bin ich, hallo, unsere gemeinsame Heimatregion lenken, den Ostseeraum. Wir haben dort bei den Hauptfischarten eine krisenhafte Situation, die nicht durch Fischerei verursacht ist. Und vor diesem Hintergrund würde ich Sie gerne fragen, welche konkreten Maßnahmen wir dort einleiten können. Wir haben die schwierige Situation, dass wir einerseits den jetzigen Fischereifonds kaum ausgenutzt haben, dass dort noch sehr viel Geld liegt, dass wir offensichtlich Schwierigkeiten haben, Geld abzurufen. Andererseits ist es leider auch so, dass wir jetzt wissen, dass wenn die Kommissionsvorschläge in ein paar Tagen vom Ministerrat angenommen werden, eine ganze Reihe von Unternehmen und von Fischern, nicht nur in Deutschland, auch in Dänemark, in Ihrer Heimat, in den baltischen Staaten, aber ganz besonders auch in Polen, vom Markt verschwinden werden. Wie können wir diesen Menschen, die unverschuldet in Not geraten sind, helfen? Es reicht offensichtlich nicht aus, die jetzige Regelung für vorübergehende Stilllegung. Es gibt zu wenig Möglichkeiten für dauerhaftes Ausscheiden, für Abwracken. Und vielleicht müssen wir auch darüber nachdenken, wie wir unbürokratisch und schnell die Mitgliedstaaten mit an Bord holen können. Ich rede ausdrücklich nicht über den nächsten MFF. Da sind wir als Parlament und Kommission auf einem guten Weg, sondern über das nächste Jahr. Was können wir dort konkret für diese Menschen machen?
Thank you for your question. Indeed, this problem will be one of the first things to tackle if I'm confirmed. Of course, the Commission already started and have a conversation dialogue with the member states regarding the current situation, regarding potential financial support. We are at the end of the EMFF period, and of course there will be struggle to mobilize all the possible resources. I'm sure Commission, together with the Member State, will find a solution. I can only promise you that if I'm confirmed, we will continue a dialogue to look at the best possible solutions. But the question is not an easy one, and here we will need a solutions analyzing carefully the situation, and we cannot stop it at this year. We will have to look at way more into the future regarding decline of stocks, especially eastern cod. We have to be very vocal about the causes, about the activities which actually caused such decline of stocks. And of course, fishermen and women communities are the first to suffer. And it is a great example that environment and those changes which are affecting firstly those and the most vulnerable ones, and then we need to find solutions. Solutions might not be easy. Might be looking at the tools of how to retrain people, how to give them another different opportunities. Region you're coming from is also a very famous tourism region.
Vielleicht ergänzend dazu, da wir ja gemeinsam festgestellt haben, dass es nicht an Überfischung liegt, sondern an anderen Gründen, die man auch im weitesten Sinne unter Klimawandel subsumieren kann, wird die Kommission unter ihrer Führung auch einen Holistic Approach, also einen weitergehenden Ansatz wählen, damit nicht immer nur über das Thema Quoten geredet wird, weil das ja nur ein sehr bedingt sinnvolles Instrument ist in diesem Zusammenhang.
Indeed, climate change is the reason behind it. Water temperature in Baltic Sea raised, and that had an enormous effect on the eastern cod. For this reason, we have a poor biomass. We have a, not poor, but actually on the verge of extinction cod stocks. And of course, we have to come to this reasoning holistically, as I've mentioned, through the tools which I've mentioned before. But they have to be also, legislations has to be applied in other areas. Agricultural activities, they also play a very important role. Pesticides use, fertilizers play a very important role with the situation which we currently have in the Baltic Sea.
Thank you. For Renew, Maria Rodriguez Ramos.
Muchas gracias, señor comisario designado. Efectivamente, usted es el encargado de poner en marcha la nueva estrategia de biodiversidad y, tal y como le ha encargado la presidenta electa de la Comisión, nuevas medidas de biodiversidad en el ámbito de la economía agrícola, de la producción. Señor comisario, tenemos dos importantes problemas. Uno es el presupuestario, usted lo ha citado, pero es enorme, porque tenemos un presupuesto muy insuficiente para proteger la biodiversidad. La Red Natura 2000 necesita 6.000 millones al año y los fondos europeos solo cubren el 20%. Pero no todo es aumentar el presupuesto, es ser eficientes con el que tenemos. Y la propia Comisión nos ha dicho que el incumplimiento o la incorrecta transposición de las normativas europeas ambientales por parte de los Estados miembros causan al año un coste de 55.000 millones en costes de salud y en costes de deterioro ambiental. ¿Puede usted comprometerse hoy en esta comisión a que en la nueva estrategia de biodiversidad se compromete a incrementar el presupuesto para la protección de la biodiversidad? Y le pregunto también si contemplará alguna medida para mejorar los sistemas de control, seguimiento e implantación de la legislación ambiental comunitaria en los Estados miembros por parte de la Comisión como guardiana de los tratados y de su acervo.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Regarding budget, I will be definitely vocal about need of increased budget, and I think together working with Vice President Franz Timmermans, together working with other commissioners, I think Madam President-elect stated it very clearly that it's a strategic goal, and I think strategic goals has to be funded sufficiently. Of course, it's a college decision, and we will engage into talks and negotiations what should be the priorities. But biodiversity, if you look at main priorities, Sustainable Development Goals. This is the basic in order to reach Sustainable Development Goals. If you talk about the climate change, just recent UN report says that biodiversity, good ecosystem health in oceans and land, healthy biodiversity is responsible for 37% of climate change. So I think it's strong arguments. And inaction will definitely cost us much more than action. Regarding environmental laws, Madam President-elect, she was very clear, and it's stated in the mission letter as well, a zero tolerance for incompliance. And it is very important. And I have said in my speech that I will be definitely looking at all the possible toolbox. Of course, first of all, it is important to engage, help member states within the dialogue, but if nothing left and there is not enough, just enough done, that can end up with the infringement procedures, which is many of them already happening.
Sí, por último, ¿podríamos esperar durante su mandato algún nuevo instrumento ambicioso para la protección de los bosques, no solamente los europeos, sino los de terceros países que se ven muy afectados por nuestro consumo? En especial, le preguntaría si tiene alguna medida concreta para mejorar la certificación de las cadenas de producción y suministros de productos libres de deforestación.
Thank you. So regarding deforestation and beyond the EU, it's, of course, we have to reassess our footprint. And I will be definitely working closely with the other commissioners. It is important that resources, funding, we are allocated to other countries, that they wouldn't actually lead to deforestation is one. Secondly, it is important to improve labeling. And as I've said, it is important to have deforestation-free supply chains. But in order to reach that, of course, we have to improve monitoring mechanisms, and I'll be definitely working on it.
Thank you. For the non-inscrit, Ivan Sinčić.
Vi, gospodine Sinkevičius, dolazite iz Litve i ovdje ste kandidat za komesara za zaštitu okoliša i oceane. Postavit ću vam pitanje koje nisam još čuo ovdje do sada, koje se tiče onog dijela zaštite okoliša koji se bavi zaštitom od neionizirajućeg zračenja, odnosno unutar toga na elektromagnetske valove. Prvo ću reći nešto općenito, a nakon toga ću se usmjeriti na situaciju u mojoj Hrvatskoj. Sadašnji standardi zaštite su postavljeni 1998. godine, prije više od 20 godina. Tada je to učinila Međunarodna komisija. Oni su propisali isključivo, dakle, termičke razine. Međutim, u 20 godina znanost se razvila. Napravljeno je niz drugih istraživanja. Mi danas znamo mnogo više. Znamo i za neke netermičke učinke. Problem je zapravo bio sličan tada koji danas imamo sa pesticidima ili endokrinim disruptorima. Nisu uzeti u obzir sinergijski učinci, kumulativni učinci i dakle drugi netermički učinci. Situacija je posebice aktualna sa razvojem novih tehnologija kao što je 5G, 6G, 7G i tako dalje. Te vas postavljam pitanje, hoćete li uzeti u obzir 20 godina razvoja znanosti i postaviti bolje standarde zaštite od neionizirajućeg zračenja? Hvala.
Okay, thank you. Non-thermal radiation. First of all, of course, as far as I know, I'm not an expert on non-thermal radiation, but sun as well is in that group as non-thermal radiation. Many things, human activities as well, as you have mentioned, 5G and networks and so on, pesticides, endocrine disruptors as well. on this issue, I think, first of all, we have very clearly set priorities on tackling, and as I mentioned, regarding the zero emission pollution, tackling endocrine disruptors. Regarding pesticides use as well, I think it should be looked very carefully through the zero emission pollution. We have to subsidize ecological farming more and more. So I'm always ready to take a scientific advice. I'm always ready to look at it. I know that World Health Organization are always, let's say, on top of such issues. They usually issue member states advices, countries advises how to deal with one or another issue, and I am as well, if confirmed, are always ready and respectful to scientific advice if such threats, especially to human health, arise.
Hvala vam. Uvodno ste rekli da ćete putovati diljem Europe. Evo ja vas pozivam da dođete u Republiku Hrvatsku. Kod nas bazne stanice, odnosno antene, nažalost, niču kao gljive poslije kiše. Naše slabe institucije nisu u stanju dovesti situaciju u red. Hrvatska je jedina zemlja Europske unije gdje vam ne treba građevinska dozvola za postavljanje jednog takvog građevinskog objekta. Rađeno je istraživanje, dakle, na nasumično izabranih 100-tinjak baznih stanica u Zagrebu, 90% njih je ilegalno. Postoje rezolucije Europskog parlamenta, kao što je ona iz travnja 2009. i ona iz rujna 2008. godine, koje propisuju standarde za antene blizu vrtića, blizu škola i drugih objekata. One se u Hrvatskoj ne poštuju. To vas pitam i na to stavljam fokus tijekom svog izlaganja. Pozivam vas da posjetite hrvatske institucije kao što je Ministarstvo zdravstva, koje je po zakonu prije 10 godina trebalo objaviti registar tih stanica da se pojača zaštita. Nakon 10 godina nisu napravili ništa.
Sir, thank you.
Hvala vam.
Thank you. I actually visited Croatia 2 years ago with my wife, and I think it left a fantastic feeling, especially people, how warm they were. And in regards, of course, it is important to keep their health in a good status. Important tool to use is, of course, impact assessment. And impact assessment is in the legislation of every member state. It has some flexibility, but that flexibility cannot, do too much and overlook major issues which can cause problems to human health.
Thank you.
Questions still standing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for the last questions, we have at the first of the third block, Jeroen Lenaers from EPP Liebe Committee.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Although the numbers... Sorry, I apologize, Chairwoman. I thought that was a generic term. My apologies, Madam Sippel. We'll start again. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Although the numbers of arrivals have significantly decreased in recent years, it is also clear that the European Union is nowhere near ready for a potential next crisis. And we've said it in this House many times, we've said it tonight as well, the only real approach to migration is a holistic one. Border control, fair and efficient asylum procedures, solidarity, dignified receptions are all needed. But especially also what is missing is return. If we see that only 1/3 of the people that are not in need of international protection actually return to their country of origin, it also means that 2/3 willfully ignore the rules of procedures that we make here and stay anyway, which is something that is also hurting the public support that we need in order to take care of real refugees. Now, increasing returns, you've said this already, can only be done by cooperating with other countries. Tragically, however, this is also part of the policy that we have not been very successful on so far. So my question to you is, Mr. Schinàs, how would you envisage to improve this cooperation with third countries, and what kind of concrete steps are you planning to take in that regard?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lenas. For 2 minutes, the answer of the Commissioner-designate, please.
Yes, Mr. Leonards, I think you're touching one of the, how should I call this, of the new elements that we have to bring into the pact, as I was saying earlier, to try to unblock the situation and use this new, fresh, this opportunity for a new dynamic start. It is in my mission letter, by the way, but as many other things. But I think that one of my priorities would be, together with Jutta Urpilainen and the Commissioner-designate for International Partnerships, to start early on into the mandate a new wave of readmission agreements with countries and arrangements with with countries of transit and origin. We need this. We need this, and we need this not only because inevitably, I mean, we cannot pretend that this is not happening, that it has an impact to the management of migration policies, because we need it as a new partnership approach with these countries into some sort of a win-win relationship. It would be wrong to build these readmission agreements only on a partial reality, which is migration related. We have so much in common with this country. We have so much to do to help them. So we have to be, I would say, intelligent enough, and I think we are, with all modesty, to try to craft these new agreements with third countries in a way that makes sense for them and for us, not only for us. And we now have in our reach instruments and tools, visas, soft power, money, scholarships, also trade, all sorts of educational cooperation that can bring together in discussing and striking agreements with these countries. Without these agreements, do not expect, Mr. Leonard's, improvement on returns. So this is something that has to go together, and this is something that will be part of the new pact. I'm personally convinced of it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lenas, do you have a follow-up question, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Fully agree on the part of the readmissions, and especially also very sensible to start with a number of key target countries of origin and transit. And I also hope that the cooperation in that respect and the help you will get in the coming 5 years from the High Representative and the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the Member States will be more efficient than it was in the past 5 years. Now, secondly, partnerships and win-win partnerships as well tend not to be cheap. I'm not only saying this because I got married this year, but in general. How do you see, for instance, the role of the funds, and specifically the AMIF fund, to help you reach those, this cooperation with third countries, specifically of origin and transit?
Thank you very much for that additional question. Mr. Schinàs, for 1 minute, please.
Okay, quickly on this minute. I think, Jeroen, you are right in saying that this needs to be a fresh start. You are right in saying that has to be done with everything we have in our minds, at our disposal. In terms of resources, I think money, I will come to the money in a second, but other than money, I think we have lots of other things now that we can leverage when we discuss with these countries. Visas, trade, cooperation, investment, education. On the money side, you raised AMF, but you should not forget also that we have this new program with the unpronounceable abbreviation, which I think goes like something like NCCI. Yeah, I'm unable to pronounce it. We call it the single lady, I think, in the MFF jargon. There is a lot of money that would allow us to address root causes, real development needs, and also aspects related to borders management and so on and so forth. So we can do a lot through that.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on our list is Mr. Kizil-Jurek from Cult Committee for GUE, please.
Mr. Schinàs, in contrast to the title of your profile, I strongly believe that there is no one way of life in the European Union, but political principles which are aiming at protection of human dignity, pluralism, diversity, non-discrimination, solidarity and equality. And indeed, we are living in a period where cultural racism is growing in the European Union. What measures do you intend to implement in order to face the challenges deriving from cultural racism? Mr. Schinàs, in your written answers, you stated that the European culture, and I quote, is admired throughout the world and we need to protect it. And here you spoke about some envying European culture. Who are envying European culture, and from whom shall we protect the European culture? Do you believe that European culture is superior? And third question, you said that you don't like isms. Feminism is an ism also. Do you dislike feminism?
Mr. Schinàs, for 2 minutes, please.
Let me start with feminism. I prefer the term gender balance. I think that's the way to say the same and avoid the ism. So we clear that, Mr. Gizil-Jurek. Let's continue to the other two issues. I'm not quite clear on what you mean by cultural racism. What exactly do you have in mind? I'm trying to see what would justify the use of this term in the European Parliament. Where is our cultural racism? We are translating in 22 languages. We have people from all backgrounds, ethnic, linguistic, national, represented here, elected directly by the people of Europe. Where is our cultural racism? I see a cultural richness, and I'll see a cultural pride of when I listen to people like you, like Mrs. Ismer, like Mr. Magid. Where is our cultural racism? I've never lived through such a concept. I don't know what it is. And when I look at our instruments, when I look at our programs, Creative Europe, when I look at Erasmus+, when I look at all this, the only thing precisely we do is the opposite of what we accuse us. We bring people across borders so that they can meet, travel, study, train, understand the other culture. Where does this cultural racism is located in Europe? I would be very interested to go and see it. I understand that there is a fear of cultural dominance. There is a fear of cultural supremacy. I do not share this fear, because I think that precisely our strength is, as you rightly say on the second part of your question, in our diversity of values, on languages, of the way we are and the way we live in Europe. And when I say, indeed, that culture, European culture is envied, I say that when you are in China, you want to go to Louvre, you want to go to the Parthenon, you want to see our cultural heritage. This is what I need. This is what I mean. I don't mean exclusion. I don't mean us against them. You misunderstood me profoundly if you attribute this mentality to me. I'm not like that, Mr. Gizil-Jurek. I'm not like that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner-designate. Thank you very much, Commissioner-designated. Mr. Gizil-Jurek, do you have a second question, follow-up?
Yeah, I will continue in Greek. Maybe we can understand each other better. Κύριε Σχοινάς, πολιτισμικός ρατσισμός είναι μια φράση που υπάρχει σε όλες τις γλώσσες. Στα ελληνικά ονομάζεται πολιτικός ρατσισμός. Στα γερμανικά kulturrassismus. Στα αγγλικά cultural racism. Και μάλιστα έχει τεράστια σημασία, γιατί είναι αυτό ακριβώς που ανατρέπει την ετερότητα στην Ευρώπη. Γιατί η Ευρώπη πρέπει να είναι ενωμένη μέσα από την ετερότητα, όπως συμφωνάμε και οι δύο μας. Όμως πολλές φορές ακούσαμε ότι απέτυχε πολυπολιτισμικότητα στην Ευρώπη. Το έχουμε ακούσει και από την κυρία Μέρκελ από τη Γερμανία και από άλλους, ότι απέτυχε η πολυπολιτισμικότητα. Άρα έχει μεγάλη σημασία να υπερασπίσουμε την πολυπολιτισμικότητα. Ερώτηση μου σε εσάς είναι τι θα κάνετε για να ενδυναμώσουμε μια λειτουργική πολυπολιτισμικότητα.
Mr. Schinàs, a reply for 1 minute, please.
Δεν υπάρχει καλύτερη απόδειξη για την πολυπολιτισμικότητα
από το γεγονός ότι ένας Κύπριος Ευρωβουλευτής τουρκοκυπριακής καταγωγής με έναν Ελλαδίτη υποψήφιο αντιπρόεδρο μιλάνε στα ελληνικά στην αίθουσα του Ευρωπαϊκού Κοινοβουλίου. Πάτε, ψάξτε αλλού. Εδώ δεν θα βρείτε πολιτικό ρατσισμό, ούτε πολιτιστικό ρατσισμό. Εδώ είναι η Ευρώπη, κύριε Ριντουρέκ. Θα κάνουμε τα πράγματα αλλιώς.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on our list is Mrs. Schchiná. It's correct in the pronunciation, or? Okay. 1 minute, please.
Muchas gracias, señor Schinàs. Como representante de la Comisión de Empleo, a mí me gustaría preguntarle por los jóvenes. Los jóvenes de hoy somos la generación mejor preparada. Sin embargo, la tasa de desempleo juvenil sigue siendo inaceptablemente alta en la Unión Europea. La precariedad laboral y los contratos temporales han aumentado exponencialmente, afectando al 43,3% de los jóvenes de entre 15 y 24 años. Entre estos jóvenes hay un número extremadamente alto que no puede conseguir un empleo fijo. Los contratos de 0 horas, a tiempo parcial o temporales, o los contratos mercantiles no cubiertos por la legislación laboral son cada vez más comunes entre los jóvenes. Muchos se ven obligados a aceptar condiciones de cada vez más precarias y menos seguras. Señor Schinàs, ¿cómo piensa mejorar la situación de los trabajadores jóvenes para fomentar su acceso a un trabajo digno, cualificado y de calidad, que al mismo tiempo amplíe su protección social? ¿Está de acuerdo en que el desajuste formativo no es la única causa de esta situación y que, por tanto, la política de formación no puede ser la única solución? ¿No cree que precisamente este desajuste se debe, en parte, a que las personas sobrecualificadas están atrapadas en empleos de baja calidad? Gracias.
Commissioner-designate for 2 minutes.
Sí, señora Holmes-Guinel, yo creo que efectivamente usted plantea la pregunta correcta y apunta a una paradoja europea. La paradoja es la siguiente, que nunca jamás en la historia de empleo tenemos tantos europeos trabajando. O sea, tenemos un récord histórico de empleo. Pero la paradoja es que mientras tenemos empleo, cada vez más empleo, tenemos también igualdad que persiste y dificultades de acceso y problemas de precariedad del empleo. Estos son problemas reales y son problemas europeos, pero sería un error, creo yo, ofrecer desde Bruselas una solución única que responde a las necesidades de los mercados laborales de nuestros Estados miembros. Nosotros sí, y lo hacemos con esta gobernanza económica europea del semestre, cada año, en cada país, con precisión, decimos a los Estados miembros donde nosotros vemos es importante concretar, mejorar la política. Lo hacemos, y como lo decía antes, no me acuerdo a quién, 60% de estas recomendaciones por país tienen que ver con el empleo, habilidades y sanidad, o sea, temas que me corresponden. Entonces, soy consciente que este trabajo de semestre lo tenemos que seguir apoyando. En paralelo, tenemos que trabajar con los instrumentos que es el Fondo Social, precisamente para temas de inclusión, porque ahí tenemos 20-25% reservado para la inclusión. Y por lo que se concierne a los jóvenes, la solución es la parte, digamos, Gabriel, que es Erasmus+, la formación profesional. Ahí tenemos más oportunidades de orientar Erasmus+. Ya no es un problema académico, debe ser un problema de formación también.
Thank you very much. Do you have a follow-up question? Please, 1 minute.
Sí, ahora me gustaría preguntarle por las condiciones de trabajo de los becarios, específicamente en lo relativo al nivel de remuneración y el contenido del aprendizaje de estas experiencias para los jóvenes, ya que siguen siendo uno de los elementos que más nos preocupan. ¿Qué hará la Comisión Europea para abordar este problema en vista de que las iniciativas en curso, como el marco de calidad para las prácticas, no han logrado otorgar los derechos adecuados a los becarios? ¿Está de acuerdo en que las prácticas deben remunerarse, basarse en un contrato escrito y que nunca deben sustituir a los trabajos reales? Y para terminar y abordando otro tema, me gustaría hacer una pequeña referencia sobre el nombre de su cartera. Muchas voces se han alzado aquí dentro hoy para cambiar el nombre, pero a mí me gustaría hacerle una propuesta. El título de este portfolio debería reflejar lo que es y lo que debería ser Europa y sus ciudadanos. Una sociedad cohesionada, integradora, solidaria y segura. Y por eso el título debería ir más encaminado hacia un multiculturalismo y unos valores europeos y no el título que se está proponiendo para la cartera. Muchas gracias.
For 1 minute, Commissioner-designate, please.
Para la segunda parte de su pregunta no tengo ningún inconveniente de decir que estoy de acuerdo con el contenido de que usted propone y yo creo que he pasado más que 2 horas aquí precisamente explicando cómo yo veo mi trabajo, que es muy similar a la manera que usted acaba de describir. Segundo, en el tema de los becarios, ahí también tiene razón. Hay una nueva toma de conciencia que el trabajo de los becarios no puede ser una oportunidad para tener formas de trabajo perennes, en condiciones precarias, utilizando, yo diría, distorsionando la noción de la formación. El trabajo becario tiene sentido solo si tiene que ver con un periodo limitado, muy bien precisado en términos de aprendizaje y habilidades, y para mí es importantísimo, remuneración. Si estas condiciones no se reúnen, para mí el trabajo becario es otra cosa. La comisión, que yo creo que en este tema lo estamos haciendo un poco mejor, vamos a seguir trabajando con el comisario Schmidt para que sea esto el principio universal, digamos, para este tipo de trabajo.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mrs. Riba Irginer from Cult Committee for the Greens.
Buenas tardes, señor Schinàs, aquí. El derecho a la libertad de expresión artística ha sufrido graves violaciones en los últimos años. Los casos judiciales y el encarcelamiento de artistas por haber ejercido su derecho a la libertad de expresión han aumentado en toda Europa y son los gobiernos los principales violadores de estas libertades artísticas. La cultura es importante herramienta para el diálogo intercultural y para construir sociedades inclusivas, que no sean racistas y que abracen todas las diferencias culturales e ideológicas. Pero los casos de censura y represión artística afectan muy a menudo a grupos vulnerables, como las minorías étnicas, las mujeres, las comunidades LGBTI o grupos críticos con el sistema. La ONG Freemouth ha registrado un número creciente a las causas abiertas a artistas y la censura de obras de arte que afectan, principalmente artistas de estos grupos que he hablado. ¿Qué medidas tomará para fortalecer la libertad de expresión del arte como herramienta para combatir el racismo y la discriminación? ¿Evaluará la legislación implementada por los Estados miembros que contravengan las normas europeas e internacionales de derechos humanos sobre libertad de expresión artística?
Thank you very much, Commissioner designated for 2 minutes.
Señora Riba Irginer, todos nuestros Estados miembros son democracias y todos nuestros Estados miembros suscriben a la Carta de Derechos Fundamentales y las libertades que ahí se exponen en detalle. Por lo que a mí me concierne, tanto como persona como comisario designado, yo no concibo que la expresión artística y cultural puede ser de alguna manera disciplinada. No lo concibo, no entra en mi esquema de valores. Yo creo que la expresión cultural y las libertades, lo que nuestras fuerzas creativas componen, escriben y divulgan, es algo que también es parte del modo de vivir europeo, es lo que nos define. Es porque somos únicos y porque nos admiran y a veces nos envían en otras partes del mundo. Ahora, usted creo que tiene algunos ejemplos en mente que yo desconozco, pero si esto sería así, veo con dificultad a un juez que podría procesar un tema de expresión cultural. Es un tema muy vinculado a la independencia del Poder Judicial. No seré yo ni la Unión Europea que puede intervenir a los poderes judiciales para decirles lo que es aceptable o lo que no es. Eso es parte de nuestra civilización constitucional y reglamentaria en cada Estado miembro, pero estoy dispuesto con María Gabriel y los servicios de considerar casos o asuntos que tienen que ver con las competencias europeas, porque ahí sí que nos interesaría saber lo que pasa y lo que podríamos hacer para ayudar.
Mrs. Riba-Ijiner, do you have a follow-up question?
Voy a poner un ejemplo concreto. Según diversas ONGs, ha aumentado el uso que hacen algunos gobiernos, algunas medidas que están destinadas a luchar contra el terrorismo, pero que en realidad lo que utilizan es para castigar a los grupos que antes he mencionado. En España, por ejemplo, hay un cantante, Valtònyc, que fue incluso condenado a prisión por las letras de sus canciones. Ahora se encuentra exiliado aquí en Bélgica. La misma Comisión Europea ha considerado que no es válida la orden de arresto de España contra él. Esto ya no es un conflicto interno, señor Schinàs, sino que afecta a los estándares democráticos europeos. ¿Cómo garantizará que la libertad de expresión esté protegida en Europa y que nadie puede ir a la cárcel por sus obras artísticas?
Vuelvo a repetir lo que dije en mi primera respuesta. Para mí, la creación artística y la libertad de expresión es un principio universal que nos define. No conozco el caso que usted acaba de citar, pero según lo cuenta, tiene que ver con la apreciación judicial de un sistema judicial nacional de una determinada situación que desconozco. Siempre en mi vida profesional, como funcionario europeo, he seguido el principio que los poderes hay separación de poderes en Europa desde la época de Montesquieu, otra cosa que nos define, otra cosa que nosotros hemos inventado para el resto del mundo, y aquí me quedo. No puedo de aquí establecer los parámetros de un caso específico que desconozco, que tiene que ver con la apreciación del Poder Judicial independiente en nuestros Estados miembros.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker on our list is Mrs. Bunting from Culture Committee for Renew Europe.
Is it working? Mrs. Schīnās, thank you very much for your answers. I'm very pleased to hear you confirm with such vigour your commitment to diversity in Europe. I'm a liberal, I say hastily, and I have no interest in promoting aggressive identity politics. But like others here, I value Italian culture, Greek culture, German culture, and yes, even British culture. I do not want anyone outside of the Euro bubble to have any reason to think that we, any of us, insist that there is only one European way of life. For my first question, though, I want to ask about the practicalities of your position. You are responsible for lifelong learning and cross-border learning. You have mentioned Erasmus Plus a few times. How do you plan to work with other commissioners to ensure that the European influence on education promotes European cultural diversity, as well as the critical but less controversial innovation, digital and vocational skills?
Commissioner-designate for 2 minutes now.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Bundig, on the first part of your question, I think by now you would have understood that we agree. Okay. On the second part of your question, on exactly the limits of my responsibilities and how I will position myself, I will share with you an experience when I was preparing this exchange and I was briefed by the services of the Commission. At the moment where we had to discuss, they had to brief me on skills, education, culture, digital. we were 55 people around the table. And I say, why are we so many? And there was a good answer for that. Because this historically was done there, then the head of unit moved with his unit there, and then something else happened, the commission came. So I use this example to tell you that the fact that Mrs. von der Leyen thought that she needs a vice president who will be politically accountable to you and responsible to her for bringing together added value that comes from this plethora of organizational structures, tools, and instruments, I'm totally for this job. That's what excites me about this job, actually. Because I'm not happy with this fragmentation. I'm not happy that I have to be briefed by 50 people. I'm not happy that many of the issues we discussed, like lifelong learning, like youth unemployment, like skills, like upskilling, they are scattered around the Commission. So we need, and that's, I think, my role, together with the Commissioner for Jobs, together with the Commission for Culture, Education, Youth and Sport, together with the Commissioner for Equality, together with the Commissioner for Health, to bring all this together and come to you and explain if I managed or if I failed. But at least you would have me and the Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Bunting, do you have an additional question?
It does come back to the title of your role. I'm sorry. And you will have prepared for this. You will have discussed it with Ursula von der Leyen before you came here. You will have had an idea of what you were going to face. But you have faced concern from across this chamber, from the left and the right, from Libe and Culture. You persuaded me that you and what you intend to do is good, right and proper. Seriously, you've got me on side. But the name of the role is poor, and I ask you not to be arrogant, not to be defensive, but to go back to Ursula von der Leyen and discuss a potential renaming. For what it's worth, my contribution would be protecting European solidarity, something like that. Just something that doesn't make, if we worry, then the citizens are going to worry even more, those that pay attention anyway. So I ask you, please don't be arrogant. Can you commit that you will spend at least half an hour discussing this with Ursula von der Leyen?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bunting. For 1 minute on that, Mr. Schinàs, do you want to answer?
First of all, let me tell you that I feel very honored that I have you on my side. If this is enough, that's a great accomplishment in itself. Second, I was telling Sophie Inveld, I think, on where we are. I repeat, I don't think that I was arrogant. If I was, I apologize. I repeat that this is something that we need to address in the context of what the President-elect has described, explained to you. You voted for her, and she further explained to your concerns in her op-ed. I said, and I repeat, that I have the greatest respect for all the arguments that shape this debate. I respect these arguments. I had the opportunity to say that I come to from a positive angle into all this. I'm not accepting that this can be instrumentalized by the extremists, and I want to assure you that I will work on the positive side. And then you're saying, go back to the President-elect and tell her. The President told you already that in Europe we discuss, and in the end we agree. That's what she said. That's what she wrote in her op-ed. So that's it. That's my answer.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Now, the last question in the question block is Isabel Benjumea from EPP Group for Culture Committee.
Gracias, Presidenta. Gracias, Comisario electo. Hemos llegado al final. A lo largo de todo este debate hemos hablado de la ambiciosa agenda de educación que la Presidenta electa le ha puesto encima de la mesa, donde se habla de la necesidad de la mejora en el acceso a la educación, la lucha contra el abandono escolar. el tema de la formación a lo largo de la vida, lo hablábamos antes de las personas en edad de 50 años que, por ejemplo, están teniendo problemas en acceso al mercado laboral, y también hemos hablado de la formación profesional como un reto importante. Pero hablando de proteger nuestro way of life, nuestro modelo de vida y los valores europeos, lo que está claro es que lo que defendemos es la libertad, el Estado de Derecho y, sobre todo, que Europa es un espacio de oportunidades, un espacio donde hay oportunidades. Y esas oportunidades las crean los empresarios, lo crean aquellos que invierten y crean empresas. Y a mí me gustaría escuchar hablar, cuando se habla de educación, de crear la mentalidad empresarial. ¿Qué se va a hacer desde Europa para que haya más empresarios que creen más puestos de trabajo y oportunidades para todos?
Gracias, señora Benjumea. Efectivamente, la pregunta plantea la siguiente situación, que muchas veces decimos que con todo nuestro trabajo en educación, cultura, formación, juventud, no hacemos un mercado único de educación, y no hace falta hacerlo porque ya ahí tenemos competencias distintas en los Estados miembros a nivel regional. Pero ¿qué hacemos con todo eso? Contribuimos a formar a gente joven, a nuestros trabajadores y a nuestros empresarios, a hacer las dos cosas que decíamos antes. Bridging the skills gap, crear la puente entre lo que nos falta y en lo que hay que tener, y el upskilling, ayudar a aquellas partes de la población nuestra que se han dejado fuera, al margen del progreso tecnológico empresarial, de avanzar. Entonces, estoy de acuerdo con usted porque haciendo eso con nuestra gente, indirectamente ayudamos a nuestra economía y la sociedad. No es una cosa que lo hacemos para nosotros y para ellos. Hay un efecto directo a crear empleo, a crear crecimiento, a crear riqueza. Ahora, efectivamente, el entrepreneurship, o sea, focalizar nuestros instrumentos a la creación de empresas, es algo que no se debe tampoco dictar desde Europa. No podemos mandar a nuestra gente de ser todos empresarios, pero podemos darles la formación, la mentalidad, los idiomas, los diplomas que faciliten su transición hasta la creación de empleo. Y muchos de nuestros programas, como el programa Juncker de inversiones, como todos esos programas de inversión tecnológica con Horizonte 2020, tienen este componente empresarial.
Thank you very much. The last follow-up question goes to you, Mrs. Benjumea.
Gracias, presidenta. Gracias por su respuesta. Yo soy de la teoría de que los empresarios nacen, pero también se hacen. Y para hacer esos empresarios, que por supuesto tiene que ser una decisión libre y no queremos imponerle a nadie que sea empresario, pero Europa tiene que tener la ambición de que haya cada vez más empresarios y cada vez más gente con ganas de generar riqueza, generar oportunidades, generar puestos de trabajo, que son al final los que pagan esos impuestos que permiten mantener el estado de bienestar, que es una de las señas de identidad también de la Unión Europea. Por lo tanto, insisto en la pregunta, en si hay una, y no está en la carta de la presidenta electa, si hay una voluntad de que cuando se habla de educación esté presente trabajar en crear la ambición y la ilusión en los niños, en poder ser empresarios, en poder decir, papá, mamá, quiero ser empresario.
No, no lo hay en mi carta de misión y no lo hay tampoco en los instrumentos y en nuestros fondos como objetivo, digamos, singular. Pero sí que hay, como intenté explicar en mi respuesta anterior, sí que hay un abanico de opciones, de instrumentos, que nos permiten primero identificar las partes de skills, de habilidades, donde estamos muy débiles. Esto ya en sí induce a la gente de focalizar a lo que busca. Entonces, si un joven, un estudiante, tiene un interés para el camino empresarial, sí tenemos la obligación de decirle que puedes pasar por aquí. Lo que no podemos hacer es imponerle un cierto objetivo de formación. Esto tiene que ser el resultado de un trabajo mucho más amplio y mucho más cooperativo entre nosotros, vosotros aquí en el Parlamento y nuestros Estados miembros.
Thank you very much. We now close the
statement before the end of this meeting.
Thank you, President. It is very late. I thank you for this rich and broad discussion, which has clearly shown to me one thing. There's no doubt about one thing that I saw here tonight, the very high level of dedication and rigor of all of you in the areas of your committees. The second thing I want to do is to say, before seeking your confidence, trust and support, to take into account that the job that I have been entrusted to do is one that has never existed before. It's a new job. And the starting point should be, why is this a new job? Why is this necessary in this new government, in this new commission that the President-elect is putting together? I think the answer, and I hope that I was able to convey this to you tonight, is that although the job is new, the problems are old. And they are deeply rooted in the way our societies have developed over time. This has brought along a certain organizational logic of silos and fragmentation. And now I'm asked, with the help of the commissioners working with me, steering, coordinating their work, to be able not only to advance in this chantier, in these work streams, to deliver what we promised to you back in July, but also, and that's more for me than for the commissioners, is to put all this together into some sort of a unified narrative of good practice, of skills, of diversity, of inclusion, of our richness, of our values, that would help us cement these resilient and tolerant societies for tomorrow. There are many challenges ahead, but I think, and I hope, that you would understand my modest contribution to taking this forward. This is what I will fight for, and this is what I hope we'll be able to deliver together over the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
It's us to thank you, Vice President-designate Schinàs, and of course thank all of the members with this high level of attendance this late hour of the day. I might simply add to conclude, as a concluding remark to this lengthy session, it's been more than 3 hours now, that you are bound to carry a portfolio which is heavily loaded with footnotes and remarks, if not objections. Because there is a European way of life, but one thing I can say is that working this late hour is certainly not consistent with the European way of life. And the second thing I can say is that, yes, there might be a European way of life, but certainly it's not one version which is meant to be compulsory. If there is a European way of life, it is open, it is inclusive, it is meant to encompass diversity and pluralism. So we only can thank all of the members who have enriched this discussion of us, only to announce that me as chair of the Libe Committee and our co-chair will be convening the follow-up by the coordinators just to assess properly the outcome of this discussion that we just had. We thank you, Vice President-designate Schinàs. We wish you well.
Thank you. Also, I also want to say thank you first to Mr. Schinàs. It was, like we expected, a very interesting and broad discussion, and I want to say thank you to you that you answered to all the questions that were raised, and I also want to say thank you to the members here who raised the questions, because you were also part of this interesting debate we had this evening. I also want to say thank you to my co-chair, Juan López Aguilar. It was a quite good cooperation during this hearing, and I also want to say thank you to the services who organized this meeting so that it could run through quite smooth. Like you know, our next task will be that we have to evaluate what we heard this evening, and I want to ask you to be from 20 to 15, a 10:15, together with the coordinators from LIBE and CULT for a coordinators meeting for the evaluation in ASP 1G3. I beg all the coordinators to listen, and please, for all the others, to be a little bit more quiet so that everyone can understand what we say.
Please, a minute of your attention, please.
Please, we are not finished yet. So the coordinators meeting will take place at 10:15 in ASP 1G3. So please, all the coordinators of LIBE and CULT, be there in time so that we can finish our work of today. And ample committee as associated committee will also be represented with one of the chairs of the committee. So please, at 10:15 in ASP 13G. G3, yeah. Hello. I just forgot to say thank you also to the interpreters who took their time this evening. I think it is not an easy job, and I think we should have perhaps a small applause for the ladies and gentlemen in the cabins who made it possible that we have this in all the languages. Thank you very much.